The story begins with Yamazaki Misaki, a 36-year-old woman diagnosed with cancer. It had been almost a year since she had had this disease, and it seemed like she was going to die today. Due to the effects of treatment, she had become incapable of having children. She was an ordinary girl, an introverted otaku, uninterested in love. When she first found out, she wasn't too shocked, but she wondered why she wished to live another life as a mother as death approached her. Next thing she knew, she was a 17-year-old girl named Isabel Dora Simmons and had just regained the memories of her past life. In this fantasy world inspired by medieval Europe, she was the eldest daughter of a count's family. She had Isabel's memories, but she also possessed knowledge that Yamazaki Misaki never had. In other words, she had been reincarnated into another world. Moreover, her wedding was tomorrow. Her father asked if she was ready for her wedding the next day while they were having dinner. Internally, she was in complete chaos, but with all this madness, she somehow found herself dealing with it with surprising composure. The groom was a duke from a neighboring province. He was so wealthy that he said he didn't need a dowry. He was a man in his 30s and had a child. For a noble girl, he wasn't the ideal candidate for a first marriage. However, considering their family's poor situation, he was more than perfect. Her previous engagement was called off because they couldn't afford the dowry. She thought it might be a good thing the groom wasn't a teenager or a young man in his 20s. After all, she was actually a 36-year-old woman and completely single. She could see why the original Isabel was upset though. A 17-year-old girl was forced to marry a man in his 30s. Undoubtedly, she would see it as a disgusting political marriage. But now her perspective had changed. She told her father that this marriage might not be so bad after all. Everything she needed would be provided there, and no harsh restrictions would be imposed on her. She told him that he had chosen the perfect marriage partner. Her father was so proud of how mature his daughter was, not knowing that she was actually 36. But her brother Oliver was shocked, and was almost sure Isabel's hatred of marriage drove her insane. It was true that the previous Isabel was somewhat spoiled and rebellious, so she stayed silent. By the way, everyone in this world was unbelievably beautiful, which was expected in a fantasy world. Even Isabel herself, with her dark purple hair, golden eyes, and silky white skin. Her beauty was astonishing, but there was a touch of wickedness in her features. Her eyes were sharp, and her figure was absolutely flawless. Suddenly, her father stood up and told her that it was time to go. She was a bit confused because that image was somewhat familiar to her. When her father said Lord Theobald was waiting for her, Isabel realized that she had heard this before. It was the Ice Hero and the Sacred Jewel. That was the title of a manga she was reading online when she was in the hospital. The name of the male protagonist was Noah Kimberly Devine, and his father's name was Theobald Alois Devine. The story revolves around Noah, who lost his real mother and was raised under the mercy of his abusive stepmother. As for his father, Theobald, he was indifferent toward his son, let alone willing to help him. This caused Noah to shut his heart completely. When Noah turned 16, a war broke out with a neighboring country. Due to Theobald's illness, Noah was forced to fight in his father's stead. And there on the battlefield, he meets a woman named Florence. Through his interactions with her, his closed heart begins to open little by little. But the story wasn't without hardships, as Noah and Florence face many dangerous challenges. The issue, however, lies in the final chapter. The Crown Prince makes a deal with a demon, allies himself with the stepmother, and they conspire to bring Noah down and eliminate him. Of course, Noah and Florence ultimately triumph, and the story ends happily for the two protagonists. But here's the real problem. The evil stepmother, the one defeated by the hero and who was killed by him, was Isabel. And of course, she wasn't foolish enough to mistreat a child, knowing the fate that awaited her. The idea of harming children was absolutely unthinkable to her, but she was worried that some force would compel events to follow the course of the story, because that was common in reincarnation tales set in fantasy worlds. If she couldn't change her fate, no matter how hard she tried, the best option for her was to escape with her precious belongings while Noah was busy with the war. And now she was getting married to Duke Theobald. In the original story, he was described as someone who hated women, and it seemed that description was entirely accurate. He wasn't even looking at her while getting married. She realized that they had never had a proper conversation, let alone met face to face. She wondered why this man got married in the first place, but she was too scared to ask him that. After the wedding ceremony, when they went to the Duke's house, Duke Theobald immediately went to his room without saying a word to his family. The butler apologized and tried to explain that the Duke was very busy. His name was Walt, and he said he was going to introduce her on his behalf. With all the maids and butlers in the house, Walt introduced Isabel as the wife of Lord Theobald. He stated that she was going to be living here starting today. Meanwhile, Isabel was thinking about the Duke. He already had an heir, and his hatred of women meant she wouldn't be forced to perform any nightly marital duties. She remembers clearly that Theobald wasn't one of the characters who directly caused Isabel's death in the story, so what she must do was clear. She told everyone that from today onwards, she was going to manage this estate as its lady, and introduced herself as Isabel Dora Divine. She began introducing herself confidently but with a touch of elegance and poise. It seemed the servants were well trained. None of them appeared surprised or uneasy. However, based on the Duke's actions earlier, it was clear that she was being treated with indifference. She was certain that if she showed any weakness, she would be underestimated. While she was thinking about the next step appeared. The greatest challenge had arrived. Noah Kimberly Divine, the main character of the manga and the most important person responsible for Isabel's death. Her whole face and attitude changed the moment she saw Noah because he looked like an angel. They were still more than 10 years before the start of the manga's story, so he was just a little boy. She couldn't believe Isabel in the manga was mistreating such a small angelic child. Even if he wasn't her own, that was unthinkable. But this was not the time to get distracted by his cuteness. She needed to get closer to him and build a connection. Walt asked the maid what she was doing and told her to hurry and take Noah to his room. Isabel told him to wait and asked if this wasn't Lord Theobald's son. She started to follow them, saying she should greet him because he would be her son from now on. Walt seemed worried, so she told him that she grew up in a poor family and took care of her younger siblings, so she was used to dealing with children. But in reality, her experience with children only came from her previous job at model home exhibitions. She caught up to them and introduced herself to him. She asked how old he was, but Noah wasn't answering. Camille explained to Isabel that Noah was 3 years old and he still cannot speak. Isabel was shocked, but the maid didn't even know that 3-year-old kids should be talking. Isabel noticed that she was very young, so she asked if she was his nanny. She responded that she recently became an attendant for Noah. The nanny passed away last month in a carriage accident. Isabel gave her condolences and asked Walt if they were looking for a new nanny because he could not be left without one. Walt said they were, but the Lord was very busy, so the selection process hadn't moved forward yet. Isabel realized that it was exactly as described in the manga. She told Walt that she would be living here for the rest of her life, so there was no need for pretense. She said the Lord was uninterested in Noah, and Walt confirmed her. The servants were not permitted to hire a nanny without the Lord's approval. And since a new nanny hadn't been appointed, she figured that it was because of Lord. They had to make do with an attendant as a substitute. But children usually start talking around the age of 2. She didn't think a 1-month absence of a nanny could explain why he couldn't speak yet. She asked Walt how the previous nanny cared for Noah. He said that she fulfilled her duties as a nanny, but she did her utmost to keep him inside his room. Hearing the child's voice might anger the Lord and put him in a foul mood. As a result, it naturally reduced Noah's interactions with others. Perhaps even the nanny herself avoided speaking to him much to prevent him from raising his voice. In other words, what deprived him of speech was isolation. Without communication, children didn't learn to talk, and this was no different from neglect. Still, it seemed the servants cared for him adequately to meet his basic needs. They were competent, but they were likely in a difficult position. In the end, she may be the only one in this household with full authority to intervene. As the lady of the manor, she felt like she must take responsibility. Even if she was just a nominal wife, here to uphold the family's image, the Lord might not approve of her taking action on her own without his permission. Isabel kneeled and hugged Noah very tightly because if adults don't protect children, who would? In the next scene, Isabel prepared a paper theater for Noah. At first, she thought it would be best to read him a picture book, so she started looking for one. But there wasn't a single picture book in the world, so she decided to make one using the skills she honed from her work on indie art projects. And so she created this paper theater. Unfortunately, she couldn't finish the binding process. Noah's reaction to the paper was perfectly normal. In a world without picture books or paper theater, this was to be expected. But she wasn't giving up here. She had to win Noah's heart no matter what because any chance of losing his affection meant the end of her life. She said they were going on a fun adventure together and started reading the book. Writing a story from scratch was extremely difficult for an amateur, so she borrowed a few ideas from a famous manga in her previous life. And since this world revolves around magic and swords, she made it a story about dragons, magic, and even jewels, something even children could enjoy. The story follows the adventure of a brave boy who meets a girl who joins his journey and encounters thieves and animals along the way. But Noah was only 3 years old, so she wondered if he could understand what she was reading. However, when she glanced at him, it was obvious that he was having so much fun, so Isabel was also thrilled. She continued telling the story to him and even started to have fun herself. Without realizing it, she started humming the soundtrack and performing with full immersion. That was just the otaku nature in her. Now she wanted to see how Noah reacted. Camille found it amazing and said she had never seen drawings like these before. And she complimented how the music she added made the experience so lively. For the first time in her life, she felt excitement. Isabel appreciated her compliments, but she made this especially for Noah, so she wanted to see what he thought of it. But Camille didn't stop talking. She asked if she had more of this story. Isabel said she was glad she liked it, but it was hard to create more of this quality. This time she wanted her to read again. Isabel wasn't sure because Noah was still silent. However, Noah repeated what Camille said and said the word again. Both of them were shocked and so happy. Camille told Noah to tell his mother and ask her to read it for him again. He listened to her and even called Isabel mother. Isabel's eyes teared up, and at that moment she promised herself to protect and care for this child with all her strength. In the next scene, Isabel was once again playing with Noah and she bought so many toys. She was glad that Noah was interested. But when she looked more closely after that, this world had almost nothing for children. There were no toys for children and the daily necessities were not enough. Even the basics were missing. They were small but heavy and hard to grip. In any case, what Noah needed right now was education, so she thought of building blocks. The stableman worked hard to cut the wood into various shapes. She said she would smooth and color them, but she stopped when she tried to cut them herself. She curiously watched Noah build stuff, but he didn't know how to play with them, so she showed him by making a castle. She let him try it and asked what he was going to build. He said a little house with his mother. Thanks to the picture books, Noah had started talking a lot recently. It seemed the effort paid off. Noah was getting more and more interested in things and learning new words quickly, like a fish in water. She was sure that he was very smart and felt like a proud parent. Noah didn't act spoiled. He was an angel and he didn't have any likes or dislikes. She wondered why the Duke treated him so harshly. She once suggested that the Duke talk to Noah, but he asked why he should talk to that child. She went to her room and punched her pillows, just thinking about his reaction. She spent the night venting onto the pillow. A few weeks after marrying into the divine family, things have been peaceful except for the relationship between Noah and the Duke. She was worried about upsetting her husband, but it was an unnecessary worry. It seemed her husband really had no interest in her. He didn't even eat meals with her, let alone spend time with her. Even when she saw him, it was like he was just a part of the body. And when they crossed paths, he avoided her, and they had no interaction. The servants, who were ready for hostility, actually treated her kindly. They must have thought she was the poor wife who was neglected by her husband, but they were very kind to her. She got 3 balanced meals a day without asking. They prepared dresses and accessories for her, and she even had a budget she could use freely, so it was like heaven. They say it was better when the husband was away. In the next scene, Isabel was in the carriage. They were in the Duke's territory. There were colorful brick buildings and a marketplace filled with colorful produce and cute daily goods. It felt like entering a fairy tale world. Isabel was amazed. The maid informed Isabel that they had already passed both the dress and accessory shops. She told the maid that today's goal was to go to a construction shop. Surprised, the maid thought she was going to build a villa. She said there was something she wanted to make there. They arrived and Isabel was so excited that she couldn't even wait for the maid to help her get out of the carriage, but the moment she opened the door, there were so many people waiting for her. They welcomed her and complimented how beautiful and young she was. They were telling her that they were able to live peacefully thanks to the Duke and wanted her to thank the Duke for them. When they finally arrived at the shop, the maid apologized to Isabel for the crowd and explained that the Duke cared so much about the people in his territory. Isabel said it was hard to imagine based on how he treated Noah and her. One of the workers came and was surprised to see a noble there. She asked if he was from the shop, and the man said the boss was not here. A man opened the door and said he thought he saw the divine family's carriage, and now it was here. He asked what business a noble had at a shop like this. Apparently he was the boss. Isabel said she came to ask for work. She opened the paper she was holding and asked if he could look at this. She said it was a toy for children. He said that was a small job, but they didn't have much time for that right now. Isabel responded that the rainy season was almost here. And she knew that during the rainy season the footing was unstable and outdoor work was more dangerous. The quality of welding also decreased in the humid season. So construction-related work drastically decreases during that time. She said she would make sure to pay him well, and since he was going to be free soon, she would give him some work. The man asked if she wasn't the wife of the Duke, and he heard she was famous for being spoiled and fond of flashy things. He asked if she thought she could get them to work just by waving money around. They had been doing this job for a long time, and in the rainy season they had their regular work. He didn't have time to deal with Noble's whims. Isabel said it was rude to judge someone just by believing rumors, but he was right. She accepted that it was impolite to suddenly bring up work without any prior notice. She apologized. She asked if he was really that busy in the rainy season. Before coming here, she asked Walt to show her the industrial materials for this area. According to this, the employment rate during the rainy season in the Divine Duke's territory was quite concerning. The man said she was right, but making just a couple of small crafts would only be a temporary fix. She figured he was looking for continuous or larger amounts of work. He didn't mean it like that, but she was right. She suggested opening a children's goods store. If he were opening a store, he would need a steady supply of items. If the business were successful, it could provide continuous work. He said he didn't want to be tossed around by the whims of nobles. She understood that he wasn't fond of nobles, but if that was the case, then taking money from them would be a good idea. Since this was her suggestion, she was willing to handle the basics of it. With the support of the Divine Duke's family, the customers would mostly be nobles, and the work would be high-paying. But the man had never seen or heard of such things as children's toys. Isabel told him that this was exactly why they should make them. In this territory, many nobles had too much money to spare. Those who dote on their children or grandchildren wouldn't hesitate to spend money. There was a lot of potential for salt. It was a great opportunity to get ahead of demand. The owner asked why they would do that. She said that she was looking at some materials, and there was an illustration of furniture from this shop. The carpenters during the rainy season make furniture and earn their living with small jobs. That's what the article said. The lines of the furniture in the illustration were very soft, so she thought if the craftsmen here could make toys, they would surely create something gentle for children. She really wanted to make them herself, but it was too difficult for an amateur like her. They were shocked, so the maid explained that if they left her alone, she would end up holding sharp objects herself. The owner wasn't even sure if she was a noble now. The attendant said she comes from the Simmons family, the Count's house. The poverty in the neighboring Simmons territory was so well known that even the common folk talked about it. They didn't have any standout industries. The land is barren and not suitable for farming. The Simmons family, like the Lord, relies on taxes and revenue from the people. But it was barely enough to cover the huge taxes the Count's family faces. Although she was a noble, it seemed she had had her fair share of struggles, so he told her that it wasn't a bad idea. He said he would do it, but only if she managed the children's goods shop. Back at home, she told Camille what happened, and she said it was a great idea. She was sure that picture books and building blocks would be a hit, but Isabel wondered if she could open a store without her husband's approval. She said that there wouldn't be a problem as long as it was within the budget she was given. She could leave the shop arrangements to the butler. She was still unsure if it was okay to think of it as just a small purchase. She said she had never done anything like this before, and she couldn't open a store by herself. While she was thinking, Noah called for her to show her the ship he had made. He was so happy and wanted to hear her opinion. Isabel immediately hugged him and said it was so cute and amazing. She realized that if she tried hard, she might be able to expand this child's potential even more. She asked if he would like more toys. He was so excited that Isabel decided to try her best. In the next scene, Walt saw Isabel at the library again, but she was upset because she couldn't find the thing she was looking for. She had expected to find resin or something of the sort, or maybe magical plants or strange creatures. Since she was in another world, it was only natural to assume such things existed. Monsters did exist here, but they were nothing more than slimes, and they weren't dangerous. Quite the opposite, they help process waste in an eco-friendly way. Thanks to these creatures, even in this medieval-like world, there is an astonishing level of cleanliness. It was a strange world, but it made sense. But after all this searching, it seemed what she was looking for was not here. While she was thinking about considering other alternatives, she stepped on a book and almost fell. She thought it was a wooden plank, but it wasn't. In the next scene, she went to inform Noah that his mother had found something amazing, but Noah didn't respond to her. Camille said she had arrived just in time and informed her that Noah had become deeply engrossed in wooden toys. She said that he enjoyed them so much that he didn't even notice when someone called his name. It was time for an outing, yet he refused to move. If this keeps up, the Duke's heir might become a recluse. Sunlight was very important for one's health, so she asked Noah if he would like to play outside with his mother. Noah seemed interested in that idea. Isabel was so touched, but this wasn't the right time. She needed to take him outside. She asked if he would like to see the hero's magical move. Noah's eyes sparkled with curiosity. They went to the garden and she started by sensing the magical power within her body. She then felt the warmth around the navel area. She lifted her head, extended her hands, and focused the energy. She directed all her energy into her palms and imagined it forming into a small orb. She held it between her hands and rippled. Both Noah and Camille were amazed by how incredible she was. Isabel tried to act humble, but it was nothing impressive. It was just life magic and nothing like offensive magic. This world was fundamentally one of swords and sorcery. In this world, nobles and most commoners could use magic after the blessing ceremony, but most of them could only use simple life magic. High-ranking nobles, however, could wield advanced offensive magic. The Emperor and the family of Duke Divine were considered the most distinguished due to their mythical origins. The first Emperor was blessed by the god of fire, while his brother, the founder of the Divine family, was blessed by the gods of wind and water. However, the current emperor couldn't use advanced magic, which makes him the Divine Duke as a rival. As for her, as a regular noble, she could only use life magic. But when she first used magic, she was so excited. Noah asked if he could do it too. Noah hadn't undergone the blessing ceremony yet, so he couldn't use magic. However, when he said he felt warmth in his belly and his head and hands too, Isabel realized that he had learned it just by hearing it once. She told him that even if he couldn't use magic yet, he could learn to control his magical energy. While she was teaching him inside, Lord Theobald could hear their voices and was uncomfortable. Walt explained that the lady was taking Master Noah on an outing. Duke didn't even bother to call her by her name. Walt told him not to call her that woman. Even if their marriage was only formal, it was better to show some respect. Isabel had been showing great care for Noah and looking after him earnestly. She seemed entirely different from what the rumors claimed. But the Duke said there was no doubt she was aiming for something. He believed that women were greedy beings who thought only of their interests. At night, Isabel was so tired that and immediately took a bath. She spends so much time with Noah every day and she never imagined children could have this much energy. The care team told her not to worry because they would ensure she retained her beauty with all they had. While in the tub, she wondered what she should display in the children's supply store. Once she made up her mind, the plan started to progress more smoothly. Walt told her that he knew some promising illustrators and playwrights who hadn't yet gained fame and promised to try talking to them. Thanks to Walt, she could now prepare picture books with ease. As for the puzzles she requested from the construction company, the owner said they found themselves enjoying them as well when they started working on them. They created some prototypes and asked her if they looked suitable for use. The results turned out much better than she expected. Even Noah expressed great admiration for her. She also managed to convince them to make building blocks. It seemed things were going well so far. But it wasn't enough. The variety available was very limited. If she were thinking of opening a store for children's products, she needed to provide children's tableware too. Not just any tableware, she needed something lightweight, unbreakable, and easy to use. The current utensils had narrow, small handles, making them hard to grip. Despite being small, it was made of ceramic, making it heavy and easily breakable. That's why she started looking for good materials to use. And she recently found an intriguing piece of information in the library. It was about a dangerous plant that grows abundantly in the Simmons region. So she sent an urgent letter to her family asking for help. And it had been nearly 2 weeks since. She wondered if they were so busy they hadn't found time to respond. The maid informed Isabel that someone had just arrived from her family home while she was thinking about that. Apparently, it was Oliver. Isabel immediately went downstairs and asked why he had come without notice. Oliver asked what it was. She asked if this was about the material mentioned in the letter. He told her that it was an incredibly dangerous substance, nearly destructive to those who handle it. He asked how she managed to find something like this. Surprised, Isabel couldn't answer him for a moment. Lord Theobald came and greeted Oliver while ignoring Isabel. He told Oliver to take his time to rest. Isabel was at least happy that he could express himself with such courtesy. After calming down, Oliver apologized for losing his temper earlier. As for the material she mentioned in her letter, he said the experiment was a great success. He took out a box and told her to look at it. It looked like white porcelain. When she touched it, it was sturdy and, more importantly, it was very light. Oliver confirmed to her that it was made from the sap of the Bavro tree. The Bavro tree grew naturally in the lands of Simon. It was a tree that produces a tremendous amount of sap, making it unsuitable for construction. In addition, it tasted bad, was inedible, and had no medicinal benefits. In other words, a tree is completely useless to humans. However, it grows incredibly fast and multiplies like bamboo, causing a great nuisance to the residents there. He brought the sap of the Bavro tree because he thought it would be best for her to see it herself. In the library, Isabel found a tablet inscribed with strange handwriting that read as follows: "The sap of the Bavro tree, when cooled to a temperature close to freezing, becomes an intriguing material. It becomes solid, white, lightweight, and not easily breakable." When Isabel touched it, she was amazed. It slipped from her hand but didn't break at all. It was perfect for Isabel. With this, they could safely make children's tableware. Oliver told her that this was absolutely ideal. In the lands of Simon, they conducted every possible experiment. Not only did it resist impacts, but it also resisted pressure, tension, and thermal shocks. Even over time, it showed no signs of deterioration. It was truly a perfect new material. Isabel said this was wonderful because now they could develop a major industry in their lands, and everyone would want to obtain this material. Oliver responded that this was the problem. If the state discovers it, it will attempt to seize the technology. They would grant them a noble title as a front, then force them to relinquish their lands and resources. And as a small, weak noble family, they didn't have the strength to resist. Even if it were only the state, the situation might be slightly better. But if other countries or extremist groups set their sights on them, death might become the kinder option. She asked if they should hide this material and sell it secretly. To ensure no information leaks, they would manufacture the products using only the people of Simons. Oliver wasn't sure if the products from an unknown source would even sell. And even if they did, discovering their performance would inevitably reveal it was new material sooner or later. The maid asked if she could intervene for a moment. She said that the current Simon's family didn't have enough staff to take on additional work. They knew they couldn't even afford to hire a gardener or a cook, so they were forced to take on multiple tasks themselves. Moreover, the Simon's family didn't have the financial capacity to hire more people. They were in a tight spot for sure. She suggested consulting Duke Divine. If it were Duke Divine, the Emperor wouldn't be able to intervene so easily. Oliver found this option viable. Currently, the country is divided into 3 factions: the Emperor's faction, Duke Divine's faction, and the neutral faction. The stronger faction was Duke Divine's. Surely it would serve as a deterrent against the Emperor, who controls the military affairs of the Empire. Isabel immediately told him that this was impossible. But she couldn't tell him the reason, because if her father found out they were merely a symbolic couple, he might be devastated. At the very least, she decided to change the subject. But there was no need for her to do that because Noah came. Camille apologized and tried to get Noah out of the room, but it was perfect timing, so Isabel told her that it was fine. Noah approached Oliver and greeted him. He stumbled over his words. He was trying to greet politely, but he faltered, and it was incredibly endearing. She hugged him again to compliment him on how good he had done. Oliver was shocked because she looked like an ordinary mother. He said that when he received this message, he thought something was up. He then asked where she got information about the Baffro tree. She said it was written on that wooden plaque in the library and gave it to Oliver to take a look at it. It seemed to be over 100 years old. The butler said it might have been written by an old gardener, but no one knew more than that. Since it was made by commoners, it was written on wood instead of paper. But those illustrations were so detailed they deserved to be preserved. However, the handwriting was extremely difficult to read, so he asked how she managed to read it. She said it was for Noah. Oliver once again expressed his surprise about how she was handling things quite well. He thought she would definitely come back. His older sister seemed more lively now than before, and he was so happy. He said he was a bit concerned about the Duke. It was known that the Duke's marriage was delayed for a noble. Moreover, his previous wife gave birth to a son shortly after their marriage, and then she passed away not long after. Because of that, some negative rumors spread. Isabel said she didn't know that. Oliver reminded her of the time he told her to learn more about customs. It seemed the original Isabel wasn't interested in such matters. Oliver asked if she knew that the Duke's previous marriage was ordered by the Emperor. That was only natural, of course. The Divine family was of great importance to their nation. If there were no heir, the family could be at risk. So the Emperor's intervention was inevitable. However, considering the rumors about the current Emperor, that might not be the only reason. Isabel remembered some things about the Imperial Palace in the manga. It was a corrupt political system run by the Imperial faction, with dubious relations involving women. Oliver asked why the Duke didn't marry for so long. Camille responded that it might be because he was a serious man dedicated to his work. But Isabel was sure it was because he hated women. With what's happening now, she had vaguely realized the reason she was chosen as the second wife, and there might be room for negotiation. Honestly, the likelihood of her request being rejected at the door was much higher. She didn't think the people in the town complimented the Duke by force. It seemed the Duke was not entirely a tyrant. She stood up and said she was going to talk to the Duke and seek his advice. Walt informed the Duke about this matter, but he said he was busy and told him to give her whatever was appropriate. He asked if she had already exhausted her budget, and confirmed in his head that she was exactly as they said about her. Walt explained to the Duke that his wife had barely used her budget so far, and if she had spent anything, it was only on making toys for Master Noah. Duke asked what she wanted to talk about. Walt said she wanted to clarify her position. Duke found her troublesome but agreed to meet because he had a meeting with Count Simmons anyway. They let her in, and she thanked him for sparing his time despite being busy. Duke told her that there was no need for formalities and ordered her to say what she had to say quickly. Before she started talking, she wanted to confirm that it was fine for Walt to be here because this might be a topic some wouldn't want others to overhear. And if he was fine with it, she didn't mind either. Duke said it wasn't a problem because Walt had been his butler for years. There was nothing here that he would care about being known. Isabel said she would get straight to the point and asked if he disliked women. Duke asked if she was implying she was dissatisfied with how he treated her. She told him that she wasn't seeking his affection. She saw herself as a shield from women in the social world, a hired servant fulfilling the role of a wife. That was how she understood their arrangement. However, there was one thing she had always wondered about. This marriage didn't seem to benefit him much. While she gets to wear beautiful dresses without concern and live without the fear of hunger or cold, his gains seem non-existent. Her family, the Simmons, must feel relieved now that the expensive young lady was no longer their burden. But for him, she couldn't figure out what advantages he gained. She realized that this was actually his advantage. Duke asked what she meant. She explained that she had heard his first marriage was ordered by the king, and though this was just speculation, something unpleasant must have happened during that time. He seemed to get angry, so she told him that this wasn't a question and he didn't need to answer. but it was a fact that Duke Divine, who had refused marriage repeatedly, eventually got married. After his first wife passed away, there must have been quite a stir over who would take her place as the Duchess. If he only needed a guarantee of loyalty, he could have married the daughter of a trusted noble, but marrying the daughter of one vassal could create conflicts with others. Even if he chose a wife peacefully, he, as someone who disliked women, would have difficulty treating her well. That might weaken his faction, and in the end, the one chosen was her, a woman from the impoverished Simmons family, a house no one wanted and land no one desired. While having them as allies might bring little advantage, it would also bring no harm. No one had ever tried to recruit the Simmons family into their faction before. In other words, the Simmons family was the only one that wasn't his ally or enemy, but now that he has married her, some might try to sway him to their side. Duke Divine asked if she was threatening him. She told him that understanding this danger was why she wanted to discuss the main topic. She swore to never betray him, nor will she demand any physical relationship. However, in social settings where appearances were necessary, she was going to play the perfect role of the Duchess. To earn his trust, she was even willing to enter into a magical contract. Both Walt and the Duke Divine were shocked. Walt asked if she was serious, because a magical contract meant absolute obedience. Breaking it results in instant death. She stated that she was serious because she wanted him to understand how earnest she was. Duke asked what her demand was. She asked him to protect the Simmons family and their land. Duke asked if she wanted him to provide funds to sustain it. She corrected him, saying she wanted protection from human threats. Duke was puzzled and asked if something had already happened. He was so worried that he must think a rival faction had done something to them. She comforted him that it was nothing like that. Duke recalled that she said no one wanted the Simmons land, and then figured that something had come up. He asked if it was mineral resources or some kind of ruin. She took out the box and asked him to take a look at it. She explained that this was developed in the Simmons region. Originally liquid, it hardens into a material that doesn't break. Her brother tested it extensively and said it had never broken once. Duke Divine wanted to test it, so he used fire magic on it, but it didn't budge at all. He then used ice magic. There wasn't even a crack on it though. Even with his magic, there was not a single scratch. He decided to use his sword this time. He tried to stab the sword, but it didn't work. He confirmed that what she said was true. Isabel was glad he understood. He asked what she was planning to do with this. She excitedly said she was going to make children's tableware. She explained that it was lightweight, which was perfect since children weren't very strong, and since kids tend to drop things, this wouldn't break. Parents who had suffered from their kids breaking expensive plates would love this, and she was sure it would sell well. Duke was confused, so Wally explained that she was planning to open a children's goods store. She apologized for not consulting him first, but he was fine with that anyway. He asked for the documents for that property. Isabel asked if it was a suitable vacant property, and he said it was a vacant property. But the shops that had opened there all ended up closing after a short time. He asked what she would do in this situation. She asked what kind of store it was before. Walt said it used to be a store for dress goods, perfume, bags, and sometimes women's shoes. They were all popular stores at first, but once they moved to this location, the customers stopped coming. Then, when they moved to another location, the customers returned. It even started rumors that the place was cursed. So the problem wasn't the products or the management. She said that the biggest issue was that there wasn't a place nearby to park a carriage. She had passed by the street where the store was located before, and there was heavy carriage traffic, so it seemed impossible to leisurely board or get off in front of the store. The parking area was a bit far from the store. Also, the shops that used to be there catered to noble women. Noble women wearing heavy dresses and high heels wouldn't walk to the store even for a short distance, and if there were other stores to choose from, they wouldn't bother. If the products were not bad, she said it would be good to remodel the backyard to create a parking area. The path was wide enough and there was enough space for carriages to pass. Both of the neighboring houses had similar gardens, so if they could talk things over with them, they could even knock down the fences between the three gardens and create a large parking lot. Since they needed a place to turn carriages around, they could only park about 4 carriages in one garden. But if they share the turning space, they could fit more. If all 3 shops agree, it could be mutually beneficial. Also, having them enter through the back door would leave a bad impression, so if they made an entrance facing the backyard specifically for VIPs, it would eliminate the feeling of a back door and maintain a proper appearance. She said she would keep that solution in mind for now. First, they must negotiate the rent and bargain as much as they can. She said that if the previous store failed, they could reduce the rent by half. If the landlord hadn't noticed anything, it might not be impossible to get a 30% discount. Duke Divine seemed like he had a headache and told her that he would agree to her request. When Isabel finally left, Walt asked if he was sure. Duke Divine was looking at the magic contract on his table. He said it couldn't be helped. The hat material was too dangerous to leave unchecked. If it were used for military purposes, it would definitely upset the current balance of power. The Emperor would want it. Walt said that's why the magic contract was necessary and found Isabel quite clever, but Duke preferred calling her greedy. Walt found their earlier argument rather impressive. Duke told him that this wasn't something to laugh about. This had really turned into a complicated mess. He wondered who even called Isabel a spoiled, flashy, and naive fool. In the next scene, Duke Divine, Oliver, and Isabel were talking. Oliver showed him the tableware made with the new material. Oliver explained that the items designed for children were also made easy to hold. For instance, the utensils had been designed with slightly thicker handles. With cups, handles were placed on both sides. It had been several months since discovering the new materials, and development was progressing surprisingly smoothly, and one of the reasons was her husband. After that magical contract, he came up with a totally unexpected suggestion. He asked how the production structure is coming along, and she said they haven't talked about it yet. She just wanted to disclose any information for now, and she was thinking of somehow keeping it with just Simmons and her. Duke Divine said he would handle setting up the production equipment and finding trustworthy personnel. In return, a portion of the distribution rights for the new material would be given. He asked for her opinion, and she was just shocked. She asked if he was sure because it was a material that had only recently been discovered. Duke responded that he was able to determine that it was a business with that much value. The value of this business extended beyond the new material itself. It was also significant that they discovered a use for the Pablo tree, which had no value before. He was right. Until now, all it did was rack up disposal fees. He suggested a 30-70 split as the percentage of the distribution right. Isabel tried to make it at least 20-80, but they were pushy about the money. They were really good at spotting opportunities and deciding fast. They were a manager, and exceptionally skilled one at that. And now, Lord Theobald was at the investor briefing. She hoped that it would go well. Still, she couldn't believe they let them attend. Oliver told the Duke that it was not only about toys and picture books. The kids' tableware was his sister's idea too. It was as easy to use as the way they used it. Isabel told the Duke that if he took a look at Noah, he would get it. He glanced at him and said he understood. Isabel noticed that Duke looked a bit pale. Oliver added that the glass he was holding was also made from the new material. Puzzled, the Duke asked if it wasn't glass. He explained that when heat was applied to the sap of the Pablo tree, they discovered that it turned into a transparent solid. His sister was the one who discovered this too. That was the reason why Isabel told him not to shift the conversation to her, but he didn't listen. Isabel said she was only suggesting that, and the rest relied on the hard work of Oliver and his team. That way of thinking was just amazing, and the strength was pretty much the same as the opaque kind. Duke wondered what he was going to do about the waste materials. Oliver said there was no issue with that because the slime would break it down for them. Thanks to this application, detailed processing was now possible. Duke admitted that it was remarkable that they had managed to achieve this much in such a short period. Oliver told him that none of this would have been possible without his help, and most importantly, it was the richness of his sister's ideas. After she became Lord Theobald's wife, his sister seemed full of life. Even so, it was really a shame because Olive wanted to be there, but he had to go to the academy. Tomorrow was the pre-opening of her very own shop. The renovations and preparations for the store had been completed successfully, and she felt truly blessed and overjoyed to be able to celebrate this day. The fact that they could gather such a wonderful selection of items was entirely due to their dedicated efforts. From here on out, it was their responsibility. She told them that the store staff would handle it for them. The shop opened, and it was time to greet the customers. They welcomed them to the toy treasure chest. She told them to step inside and be surrounded by the ceiling and walls painted with a serene blue sky. On the staircase, the style shelves feature. There were different picture books and jigsaw puzzles displayed like artwork. 3D puzzles and building blocks were neatly stored in boxes and were nicely displayed on the shelves. The customers and their kids were all amazed by the place. The response satisfied Isabel. They started asking how they could use the toys and had so many questions. The workers told everyone to feel free to try it out for themselves over there. The first step was always the hardest, but Isabel believed that she had got everything under control. Now it was Noah's time to shine. Noah started showing how to play with the toys, and everyone was watching him. After he finished making a castle out of the blocks, they gave him the picture book, and Camille started reading to him. The kids seemed really into it. Isabel told the kids to join the fun. Isabel was a clever woman, so he asked the Duke if it would be okay to bring Noah to the pre-opening of the shop, and he told her to do as she pleased. She was so mad that he responded like that without even worrying about what might happen to Noah in there. But she kept it to herself. And of course, Noah's safety had been fully considered. He was constantly attended by trusted servants. Most importantly, everyone here today was a guest. Only trustworthy individuals were present here. Isabel glanced at the parents and figured that they were bored. She asked if they would care for some tea over there, a room made of glass. They had never seen such a big piece of glass before. Isabel explained that this was made from new material. This way they would be able to watch over their children while relaxing without any worries. They sat together and talked about how they had never expected to be able to relax like this. Since they had little kids, it was impossible to sit down and just enjoy a cup of tea. One of the mother's kids got bored so easily and went to her mother's side. The mother carried her and put her in her lap but then dropped the teapot. Worried, she asked if she was hurt or if her clothes were dirty. They looked at the tableware because making a mistake at the Duchess's store was a serious issue. The worker in there told her not to worry because these tablewares were made from newly developed materials and they wouldn't get a single scratch from a fall. And they could also find them for sale in the dishware section over there. The women immediately wanted to buy them. Isabel bet she had experienced someone breaking her expensive dishes before. Now, children, mothers, and Noah were all enjoying themselves. She was glad she gave it her all. She thanked the customers for visiting their store and informed them that the grand opening would be 1 week from now. After they left, Isabel thanked every worker for their hard work. Noah was sleeping in a separate room because he was tired. She said she knew they were tired but suggested using this time to discuss and reflect as they waited for the sales report. The shelves looked rather empty. She suggested considering increasing the number of stock staff. There didn't seem to be any issues with the customer flow. The parking lot was praised for its user-friendliness too. When they exit through what used to be the back entrance of the store, now designated as the exclusive entrance for VIPs, a large parking lot spanning the width of the 3 neighboring shops, a turning space for carriages was shared among the 3 shops. By organizing the traffic flow with arrows drawn on the ground, they optimized the space to maximize the number of parking spots. It was impressive that she was able to choose this property. She said that it was all because of her husband. It was rented to them for a very good deal. In the past, the property in question was the one her husband brought up to test her. Several days after the negotiation of the magical contract, Walt brought the contract for the property they had discussed earlier. Major renovations, including the backyard, were permitted, and on top of that, the rent was only 1/3 of the original price. Walt said if she was comfortable with those terms, she should go ahead and sign. This was something he received from her husband. Isabel was questioning what happened to him because she had never seen him be this cooperative. Walt stated that it may be presumptuous of him to say this, but the master was handling the new materials, and he highly values this business of hers. Isabel was touched and said it was an honor. This was far beyond being whispered sweet words of love. She realized that she was really happy after all. Noah woke up and hugged his mother. She asked if he was tired. Noah said it was so much fun and told her that he really loved him for the very first time. Isabel's eyes teared up from happiness, and she said that this was the greatest reward of all. The report was finished and the sales had far exceeded their expectations. However, there was hardly any stock of products. Meanwhile, the news of Simmons discovering an incredible material reached the current emperor of the Graninish Empire, Nerodias. He was informed that the manufacturing process was being kept secret. If that was the case, Nerodias told him to go and take the entire technology. He told him to make Count Simmons a Margrave or something like that, and that would be enough to shut everyone up. But the man said acting rashly was dangerous. It appears to be a business supported by the Duke Divine family. Nerodias was furious the moment he heard Divine family. The man told him not to rush and to stay calm. He suggested giving it the time it deserved. In the next scene, Noah was holding a teddy bear and he was incredibly cute. This was a scene from the development process of a new product though. Thanks to everyone's efforts, they successfully opened the Treasure Toy Box store. But most of the customers buying their toys were boys. Although many girls visited their store, they didn't buy anything. Isabel wondered what the reason could be. They had puzzles and picture books, and they had added cute products that appeal to girls. But to truly capture the interest of girls, they needed something that expresses beauty and cuteness on a deeper, more captivating level. She was so focused on making Noah happy that she overlooked this important aspect. Now she remembered that the first person to feel bored in the store was a girl. The store's current state was good from a business perspective, but if possible, she wanted the girls to enjoy it too. They started thinking about a way to entertain them, and Camille said aristocratic girls enjoy dressing up and taking care of their appearance. They could offer something related to clothes or accessories. But Isabel said they would end up competing with clothing and jewelry stores. She had an idea. They could make a toy that allows girls to enjoy dressing a doll up according to their tastes, with a wide variety of colors. They would manufacture the dolls in an orphanage as part of a project to support them, while the doll clothes would be produced in collaboration with local stores. This way, they wouldn't directly compete with other businesses, and in the long run, they could introduce a luxury brand. Dresses in collaboration with clothing stores, accessories in collaboration with jewelry stores, and they may rise to the level of luxury brands. And if their picture books gain popularity, they could design costumes inspired by the book characters for role-playing. The possibilities for expanding this product were endless. While she was excited about this plan, Eve came and greeted her. He brought the additional shipment. She thanked him and said their stock was already starting to run out. She stated that they were deeply grateful for his support and collaboration, even though the agreement was initially limited to the rainy season only. But Eve said it was they who should thank her because she had provided an opportunity for those who, despite their skills, couldn't work on site due to injuries or disabilities. Now they had a place to contribute. Arnold the painter came and said the illustrators were grateful to her as well. He then showed her some of the new designs. They were absolutely stunning. Arnold told her to just imagine a single sheet like this was once something that common people like him couldn't easily obtain due to its exorbitant cost. Even if he managed to buy art supplies, they were often secondhand and worn out, barely usable. And without a patron, it was almost impossible for commoners to make a living from painting. But Isabel not only provided them with financial support, but also gave them the art supplies they needed. In addition to offering a work opportunity, it guaranteed him a stable income and allowed him to earn his living through painting. He said he could never thank her enough and said he felt like a dream come true. But it was clear that he hadn't slept in 3 days, so Isabel told him to just go to sleep. He gave her the picture book he was currently working on. It was a story inspired by her tale, the journey to become the Pirate King. But this one was about someone becoming the king of bandits. It was turning into a romantic story, but it was enjoyable. Just like with cooking, even if the ingredients were the same, the dish turned out completely different depending on who prepared it. She said that she should be the one thanking all of them, because the success of this store wouldn't have been possible without all their efforts. Eve and Arnold were encouraged. Eve said listening to her idea was the best decision he ever made. He was looking forward to working with her in the future as well. Isabel was shocked, because her only goal was to make Noah happy. Back at home, Noah was sleeping, so Isabel could head back to her room and think about the new product. Launching a new product was a great idea, but she was thinking about offering limited edition items to make it more appealing. She saw a piano in one of the rooms and played with it for a while. It seemed the piano was perfectly tuned. When she was little, her mother used to teach her how to play the piano a lot. They couldn't afford to hire a piano teacher, but after her passing, the piano went out of tune and she couldn't play anymore. They couldn't afford to hire a tuner either. She wondered if she could play a little because there was no one here. But she didn't notice Walt standing behind the door. She started playing the piano and singing. She sang a song full of excitement and miracles, a tale of love and endless dreams, a story about companions uniting to defeat their enemies, soaring freely and joyfully through the skies. That song told them this world was like one big treasure island, a song that ignites passion and fills them with excitement. That song was from the legendary anime, the opening that everyone loved. When she finished, Walt commented that this was a song with a style he had never heard before. He asked if she composed it. She was so embarrassed and apologized for playing the piano without permission. Walt told her that everything in this manner was completely at her disposal, so she didn't need to apologize. She wondered why such a magnificent piano was placed in a small room like this. A piano this luxurious should be in the salon where musicians could be invited to perform. Walt explained that this piano was brought to this house with the master's former wife when she came as a bride. Now he tunes it every now and then as a hobby and no one else touches it. This piano was a keepsake from Noah's real mother. She realized that this was one of those moments where the story shifts back to its original course. The evil stepmother is accused of playing with the keepsake of Noah's mother, considered an insult to her memory which leads to a bad ending. She started sweating in panic. She completely forgot her main goal because of Noah's innocence and sweetness. The main goal was to avoid death. Panicked, she asked if he had a soft cloth. Walt asked what had happened all of a sudden. She said that this piano was a keepsake from Noah's real mother, and if Noah finds out she played it without permission, she didn't know how he would think. Walt told her that he would be happy. Noah loved her very much. For you to play the keepsake of his real mother and bring him joyful, beautiful moments would surely make him happy. Isabel calmed down and said this would make her very happy too. She wished to be his real mother and truly felt like a family. Noah was an amazing child, but for that reason she couldn't stop wondering why Isabel hated him so much in the original story. And why does the Lord avoid him so much? At the very least, the Lord didn't seem like a completely useless person. As she was thinking about that, she started seeing scenes of her screaming at the Lord, asking why he didn't do anything. As far as she knew, there weren't many scenes in the original story that showed the relationship between Isabel and Theobald. The butler came and he seemed in a hurry. He said that the Lord had arrived and he was requesting her presence immediately. When she went to his room, the Duke said things had gotten more complicated. They had received an invitation to attend a party at the Imperial Palace, and the invitation came directly from the Emperor himself. In the next scene, Noah was looking for his mother. However, his mother was currently at a banquet inside the imperial palace. The invitation came directly from the emperor, and since it was unexpected, they had to prepare a dress in a hurry. But there was no doubt that she looked like a villain in every sense of the word. She endured her husband's pressure all the way, and it took them days to reach the imperial capital. And here they were, at last. And just like that, without planning, this banquet turned into her introduction to society. She could hear people whispering rumors about her, how she was demanding and loved extravagance. She remembered hearing those words before, during her debutante ball, but she didn't even know how the original Isabelle behaved exactly. All she could remember was that she was a bit spoiled. A man came and said he heard she started a unique business. She said she opened a store specializing in baby products. She said they were selling toys, picture books for children, tableware, and more. The man also heard that they had developed a new material and said he had received news about its properties, and it was said that he was the financial backer for it. Isabelle was completely ignored, but all she had to do was smile and do nothing more. And she was almost sure her husband wouldn't act recklessly. A woman came and complimented her dress. She said she chose it because its color matched Noah's eyes. The woman said it also matched Lord Theobald's eye color and assumed their bond was strong. Now that she mentioned him, she couldn't stop thinking about Noah. An entire week had passed without seeing him, and this was a disaster for her. She wondered if Noah felt lonely, but there was no time for daydreaming now. She still had things to take care of. With that, the man depicted in the manga as a cruel and arrogant monster, His Majesty Emperor Nerodius, arrived. The couple kneeled for him and said it was an honor to stand before the Dun of the Empire. The king's speech was so dull that her brain had completely stopped processing it. She recalled that after his official speech, the dance began. Her husband told her he wouldn't participate, though. But before the dance, the king wanted to raise a toast. At her debutante ball, the event started with a dance. But in the imperial palace, it seemed the toast was the first thing that marked the beginning of the banquet. After raising their toasts, the king suddenly turned his back and smiled at her. Isabelle was so surprised that she wasn't sure if she was imagining it. But that look just now felt something incredibly unsettling. She could remember something about this scene mentioned in the manga. There was a scene about the emperor's son, Inez. After he killed his real father, Nerodius, by the same poison he used to assassinate the Duke Theobald. She thought the manga never revealed the cause of Theobald's death, but it could be that the Duke's cause of death was poisoning. When the king told them to drink, Isabelle panicked and thought the poison could be in his wine, so she stopped him seconds before he was going to drink and asked him to hold her wine for a moment. She said her hair got tangled with her necklace and it hurt a little. Lord Theobald grabbed her glass and told her to hurry. While acting like she was fixing her necklace, she thought about what to do. If events unfold as they did in the manga, the Duke was supposed to die in 13 years. But that poison wasn't immediate. It required repeated doses before taking its lethal effect. It wasn't impossible that he had already started consuming it. There was no way she would let him drink it. She thought about pretending to lose her balance and shattering the glass, but as a duchess, she couldn't allow herself to do something like that. If she acted recklessly, she wouldn't be able to fulfill her role properly. She panicked and grabbed his glass and drank it immediately. She acted like she was messed up. She said he could take hers since she already placed her lips on his glass. She calmed herself down by thinking that this poison only becomes effective after being consumed multiple times, and she, most likely, has never taken it before. Before anything else, she knew someone who was capable of preparing an antidote for this poison. But still, she wondered what she should do with the rest. The Duke told her that she didn't have to force herself if she didn't like the wine, and he would drink it instead of her. There was a rule in the imperial palace that forbade leaving anything served, but if she made him drink this, it would be completely meaningless. So she said it was okay, and said that when she drank it earlier, something crossed her mind. She said that if it were colder, it would be better. She asked if he could freeze part of this wine and make ice cubes. She wouldn't allow herself to fall without gaining something in return, even if she stumbled. She said she didn't handle alcohol well, so that's why she asked him to make it ice cold so she could drink it slowly. She needed to gather evidence and bring it back. When the party was over, Walt guided them to the carriage. Isabelle was absolutely terrified, but at least her health was fine. Now all that was left was to return home. She wanted to see Noah as soon as possible. She wanted to pat her little Anger's head and spoil him. Suddenly, Isabelle started to feel nauseous. Her head was spinning and she couldn't stand up. She showed the ice cubes inside her napkin and said there was poison inside right before she fainted. In the next scene, Noah was getting presents, flowers, and candies. He was shocked and so happy. He said he would play with them with her mother. Everyone was upset because his mother was ill. Isabelle's body felt heavy and she felt nauseous. That poison was supposed to only take effect after several doses. In the manga, the toxins were supposed to be cured by the saint, and she was supposed to survive until the saint appeared. But now she was considering the possibility of the properties of the poison being changed. It might be a deadly poison from the very first dose. She didn't want to die yet, and she was still thinking about Noah. When she opened her eyes, she heard the Duke's voice asking if she was awake. Duke told Walt to get the doctor. Isabel asked why he was here. He asked if she remembered how she collapsed on the way back from the banquet. She said she did. He said he would let the doctor explain the details, but as they suspected, the wine she drank was poisoned. She asked about the iced water, and he told her that it was stored very carefully. Some tests were done on it, but there were still unknowns. They were going to send it back to the Divine Territory for more accurate testing by a trusted source. She thanked him and said she was grateful. It was surprising that the Duke believed what she said. He asked how she was feeling now, and she said she was fine. It didn't seem like she had a fever, and this dizziness and nausea were gone too. After that, there was an awkward silence in the room. She wondered why he was here. Duke asked how she knew the wine was poisoned. She read it in the manga, but obviously she couldn't say that. She said she felt like she heard laughter, and when she looked around instinctively, she saw the Emperor looking at her with a suspicious smile. Though, as the Duke thought, it was him. She said she wasn't sure if it was poison, but if she waited until something happened, it would be too late. Duke asked why she drank it. She was so scared, he said that she would have died. Isabel saw some worry in his face and was surprised. He asked why she went to such lengths. She said that it was for Simmons and everyone, and above all, it was for Noah. She said she could not let him die because he was the only hope they all had, even though it sounded weak. Isabel then thought of something and asked if it was her who tried to kill him. She said that she was also included in his protection through the magic contract. So if she died, she would have violated the contract, but since she drank the poison herself, this could mean she escaped that fate. He told her that they would talk about this later. A few days later, the Lord didn't allow her to leave the house until her health improved. She was late leaving the palace. It had been 3 weeks since she left Divine Territory and was away from Noah. The distance from the capital to Divine Territory was about 5 days. The harsh shaking of the carriage, the hard seats, and the Lord's constant pressure were making it a lot harder for her. But finally today she was going to see Noah. Even so, the Lord could have returned before her, but he insisted on staying. She figured he was a loyal man. Finally, after 5 days, they arrived at Divine Manor. Walt said it was a long journey and suggested she rest, but she said she needed to take her Noah dose as soon as possible. When they entered the palace, everyone was waiting for them. She apologized for taking longer than expected. Noah appeared among them, running towards her with teary eyes and calling for her. She hugged him and apologized for taking so long to return. Noah welcomed her and started crying his eyes out while screaming the word "Mama." While Noah was crying and screaming, Isabel panicked because she could feel the Lord staring at them intensely. She asked Camilla what had happened, and she said he had been like this for several days now. Once he started crying, he didn't stop until exhaustion took over, and he fell asleep. And sometimes she couldn't even carry him. She asked if this was the first time this had happened, and they said yes. That's why they also didn't know how to solve it. While patting his head, Isabel asked calmly what was wrong. Walt noticed Noah's face and stated that he might be afraid that Isabel would never come back. That was actually very possible. This was the longest she had been away from him, and on top of that, she was delayed a long time because of the poison. While sobbing, Noah apologized. He seems to try calming down but fails and continues crying his eyes out. Isabel realized that this might be the first time Noah had ever held like that, and maybe even the smile people saw wasn't real. So all this time he was enduring this. Because everyone laughed and praised him, he never asked for anything and just kept smiling. This crying little boy who was apologizing to her for crying wanted to be loved all this time. Isabel hugged him and told him that there was nothing he needed to apologize for. What he wanted, what he wished for. And even if there was something he didn't like, he could say he didn't like it. He could say anything and no one would hate him for it. She told him that he was the most precious thing she had and she loved him more than anything. She apologized for being late and coming back. She told him that she would never disappear and leave him, this sweet, smart child that she loved so much. She promised never to be apart from him again, as long as he didn't say he didn't want her with her. Among all of this, the Duke was watching them in shock. As soon as Noah stopped crying, he fell asleep. He would definitely sleep through the morning. Duke told her that her health was still in a critical state and ordered her to go to rest early. Isabel couldn't help but notice that Duke waited all this time just to say that and came all the way to Noah's door. For this man, this was a huge step forward. But she wasn't naive enough to be affected by something like that. She told him to forgive her for what she was about to say. She said that regarding her work, the way he had treated the Simmons family, and more than anything, the way the people see and value him, through all of that, she had come to her own conclusion. She wasn't just some shallow person who inherited a noble title from his parents, and he wasn't someone who was clueless about other people's feelings. That's why regarding Noah too, she was sure there were certain circumstances. It was true that she didn't know those circumstances and she wasn't even interested in them. But to a small child, a parent meant everything in the world, so she begged him to think again about what it means to be a father. That night, Lord Theobald couldn't sleep because of his headache. Walt told him that she said what she needed to be told. The Duke said it was okay and he understood it. She was right, and he understood that very well. The next day, the moment Isabel woke up, she immediately remembered the terrible things she had done. She, who knew nothing about her husband's circumstances, clearly went too far with her words. Those were harsh words, used to silence the other person without discussion. She lost her temper and said it without thinking. She was scared that she might make him angry and they would end up getting divorced. A new maid appeared, asking if she was awake. Isabel asked who she was, and she said she was Miranda, and that she would be her personal maid starting today. She was glad to hear that and asked her to take care of her. She tried to convince herself that if he assigned her a personal maid, that could mean he didn't intend to divorce her. Today she was planning to play with Noah to make it up to him for all the loneliness he felt. Miranda informed Isabel that the Lord said he wishes to visit her room for a while and he didn't mind if it was during Noah's nap. She said she understood it and went to see Noah. Noah was eating delicious food and seemed like he was in a good mood. She asked what they should do after the meal and he wanted to read stories. He then informed her that Eve gave her a new toy. It had flowers too. She asked him to show her everything. Isabel hoped that this happiness would never end. In the next scene, Isabel went to the Duke's room, and the doctor said he was going to explain the poison in the wine based on what they knew so far. First of all, this poison had no immediate effect and its toxicity was extremely weak. However, this poison appeared to accumulate in the body. If consumed several times, there was no doubt it would lead to death. Even if it was just a single dose, there was still a risk that it would gradually seep into the body. That said, if the person were perfectly healthy, they might not be affected severely for about 10 years or so. But that was what made it so hard to detect, and that was the danger of this poison. Fortunately, the lady noticed it, and they were truly grateful for that, and it seemed the Lord also consumed it once. Isabel confirmed that the reason the Duke died was the poison, and the story would have followed the original manga, ending with Noah going to war. The doctor said there was no antidote for this poison. Even holy water had very little effect. It wasn't entirely useless, but it couldn't fully cleanse the poison. Isabel thought it was still okay because the poison plot hadn't changed from the manga, which means the Saintess was still capable of purifying it, and that Saintess was only a year or two younger than Noah. In other words, she must have already been born, but right now, she is still just about 1 or 2 years old. So she couldn't use the powers of the Saintess. She didn't think this far ahead, she realized. Duke told the doctor to hurry up and develop the antidote. The doctor told him that at present, developing an antidote seems extremely difficult. The Duke was furious now. He clenched his fist and told the doctor that she had collapsed in the banquet hall and the poison was still inside her body. Isabel wondered if his anger was because of the magic contract. She wondered if her death would count as a breach of contract on his part. The doctor said he would explain that as well. As for the symptoms the lady experienced after the banquet, they didn't appear to be the direct effect of the poison, but rather side effects. It might be because Isabel's body is sensitive to the effects of medication. Now that she thought about it, in her previous life during cancer treatment, she was the type of person who experienced side effects quickly. She couldn't believe that the treat really carried over into her new life too. Since the symptoms had subsided, she was fine for now, but the Duke told him to always carry holy water with her just in case. He then asked the doctor what he meant by the difficulty in developing the antidote. The doctor responded that the poison contained many unknown components. In other words, it seemed to be a new kind of poison. It was plant-based, but they couldn't identify the plant it was made from. She remembered that in the manga, Aeneas said something similar. The name of the poison was black butterfly nectar. It was extracted from the roots of a flower called the black butterfly flower, which grew in the imperial palace garden, a garden only nobles could enter. She accidentally said the flower's name out loud and they heard her. The doctor had never heard of a plant with that name before. She said it was nothing and she just suddenly remembered something. She couldn't say she could read it in a manga, so she said she was researching ideas for new materials, and she came across a wooden tablet that had written something about a flower like that. In the imperial palace, there was a garden that only the royal family could enter, and it was said that inside, there was a black flower shaped like a butterfly, called the black butterfly flower. The Duke seemed a bit suspicious. He said it must have been written by commoners who couldn't even afford paper. He doubted any commoner could know what was inside a garden restricted to the royal family, so it was baseless imagination. She said they did get a lead for a new material from a wooden tablet too. Now it was time to gather information from any possible source. The doctor agreed that the source was questionable, but, on the contrary, as expected of the lady, that attention to detail might not be a bad thing. There were some among the upper class who took plant collecting as a hobby. Some of them were so passionate about it that they even modified plant species. Isabel said it was only natural that there would be plants unknown to the general public and not traded in markets. Duke said it was true that in the imperial palace, there were areas that only the royal family could enter. He told her to leave the rest to him and go get some rest. While they were talking, Noah opened the door looking for his mother. Camille apologized to Isabel and said he had woken up earlier than usual, and when he didn't find her, he suddenly started running. She apologized to Noah and said she was just talking a little with his father. Isabel apologized to the Duke. She tried to come up with ideas to get him out of the room so that the Duke wouldn't get angry. However, the Duke said it was okay and said his name for the first time. He asked how old he was. Shocked, Isabel said he was 3 years old. She then asked Noah if he could do some things by himself now. He made 3 with his fingers and showed them to his father. Duke watched him and told Isabel not to overdo it when playing outside. He said that it was starting to get chilly in the mornings and evenings. Isabel realized that when the Lord told her that she could come during Noah's nap time, he purposely stayed away the whole day so she could spend some time with Noah. Before he left the room, she thanked him for his kindness and consideration and sincerely apologized for yesterday. Lord stopped and told her that she was doing her job perfectly. Isabel wondered what he was holding in his heart. She wondered what he had been carrying inside all this time since Noah was born. Walt wanted to excuse himself, but she stopped him and asked if he knew what the rod was going through. When he said yes, Isabel told him that there was no need to tell her. Surely the Lord wouldn't want his wife involved in his private matters. She said she was a little worried and wondered if he had someone he trusted and could open his heart to. As long as he knew what was going on, that was enough to reassure her. After that, she went out with Noah. Walt went to the Duke's room and asked if he would like something to drink, assuming it was bad for him, but he said he didn't feel that bad. He then told him to continue the investigation on the Emperor. He wanted Walt to start gathering information on the merchant families that had recently started dealing with him, and also the nobles. And then, just in case anything happens, he wanted him to gather intel from inside the imperial palace as well. Isabel noticed that when she returned from the imperial capital, the servants started acting strangely interested in Noah. Camille said after she left for the imperial capital, it just so happened that the young master refused to leave the palace entrance at all. The sight of him waiting for her with tears in his eyes made all of their hearts ache. To prevent him from catching a cold, they got together and brainstormed ideas. They ended up arranging a room with a view of the entrance to make it comfortable for him. From that window he could see the entrance and wouldn't feel cold. And they prepared toys and picture books for him too. She smiled and thanked them. This incident pierced her heart. She thanked them for everything. Camille said she must have had a hard time too, and wondered if she was really all right now, health-wise. She comforted her that she was. Although more than half a month had passed since she was poisoned, she hadn't felt any change in her condition, and after saying that he would take care of it, the Lord headed to the imperial capital. Walt said there was no need to worry, but she was still worried about his well-being. While she was thinking about him, the maid informed her that the Lord had returned. The Duke informed Isabel that a flower resembling the black butterfly flower had been confirmed to exist. He assumed she knew the second prince, Aeneas. In the manga, he was the one who used poison from the black butterfly flower. He was the villain in the concluding chapter, formed a contract with a demon, and tried to destroy Noah. Lord said during his investigation at the imperial palace, he had the opportunity to meet Prince Aeneas. He asked him indirectly, and he learned of a garden that only royal family members may enter. Rumors say a flower shaped like a black butterfly bloomed there. Although he was only 4 years old, Prince Aeneas was a very smart child. Moreover, the information she gave him about the wooden tablet matched this perfectly, so he couldn't ignore it. And he had already found that garden in question, and there was hardly any security, so she tried to sneak in somehow. But it seemed the place was protected by a magical barrier, and he wasn't able to enter. Even though the divine family also descends from royal blood, it might be a matter of blood purity. If he recalled correctly, the founder of the divine family was the younger brother of the first emperor. That's why he was thinking of requesting Prince Aeneas's cooperation. He was the only one of the emperor's children who carried pure royal blood. The emperor had countless secondary wives and concubines, but the only one from a royal lineage was the lawful empress. What mattered was Prince Aeneas was even smarter than he expected. If they could build a relationship of trust, he might agree to cooperate. Isabel was worried that his starting to visit the palace might raise suspicion, and that's why the Lord needed her help with this. He wanted her to plan for a branch of the toy box store in the imperial capital. They would use that as a pretext to stay there, presenting new products as regular reports to request meetings with the royal family. He said he would cover all expenses for establishing the capital branch, and he would also provide the necessary equipment to increase production. Isabel told him to wait a moment. This was an incredibly tempting offer, but she felt like things were moving too fast, and this didn't feel like him. He said that they had discovered that one of the key figures in the Divine had been poisoned with the same toxin more than twice, and due to his old age, his health was already beginning to deteriorate. They had best assumed that time was not on their side. As of now, the only information they had was about the black butterfly flower. Isabel was shocked that the Duke was really kindly asking her to help him. She thought this might be a chance for both her and Noah, so she said she had a proposal she would like to discuss with him. She asked him to allow Noah to accompany her. If things go well, they might be able to change the fate of two people destined to fight to the death. When the Duke left the room, he was still surprised that she had requested to take the child with her. Walt said what she said made sense. Having a child of the same age might make Prince Aeneas feel more comfortable and open up more easily. He told Walt to quickly find a tutor to teach court etiquette. While they were talking, Noah and Camille walked past by them. Walt suggested speaking with him for a bit, but the Lord didn't seem so well. They went to his room and Walt gave him some tea and a snack. Duke apologized, but Walt said there was no need for that. He said he thought he had started to recover, but it seemed he was still seeing the shadow of that woman haunt him. Even though he didn't feel anything the last time, he felt bad when he saw him this time. Walt asked if he meant when he met the young master in the Lady Isabel's room. Duke confirmed him and started thinking about Isabel and Noah. A smile appeared on his face unintentionally. Walt seemed shocked, so he said he remembered something. At that time, Noah and Isabel looked shockingly alike. Walt noticed that as long as the lady was present, he seemed at ease even around Noah. He asked how the carriage ride with the lady was. Duke asked what he was trying to say, and Walt suggested that he admit it. Lady Isabel was truly an impressive person. When the Duke was 13 years old, there was an incident where a maid snuck into his room at night, though she failed. And even after entering high society, incidents like that occurred several times. Women seek only looks and power, and that's why he could only feel disgust toward them. But Isabel was different. Without paying him any mind, she began taking care of Noah and managed the entire estate as its head. She even went as far as to develop new material, launch a project using her own budget, and make a profit. She even improved employment conditions in the domain. She was nothing like the women he had known, so he couldn't deny that she was an impressive woman. He also admitted that he holds genuine respect for her as a person. Not as a man or as a woman, but as a brilliant administrator. In the next scene, Duke Theobald and Isabel were in the carriage. Duke said the preparations for the new store's opening were going smoothly. Isabel said the staff and artisans were starting to gain more experience, and she thought the preparations this time were progressing faster than for the main store's opening. He then asked what this huge play tool was. Isabel said the main theme of the new store was that the entire store would be like a game. Lately, the Lord had been looking for her directly in the eye more than before, and although he was still a little hesitant, he did allow Noah to accompany them. He really was trying to take one step closer. Lord figured that this huge play tool was what was eating up so much of the budget, and asked how much of an increase in sales was expected from introducing it. Before she could answer, the carriage shook and Noah woke up. The driver said the road was rough, but once they passed through this forest, they would reach the townhouse. Noah asked if they were there yet. She said they had arrived at the imperial capital, but they had already passed through the city center. Noah was a bit shocked to see his father sitting in front of him, and he bowed to him as he greeted him. Lord Theobald was shocked that his etiquette lessons were going well. Isabel complimented that Noah was truly exceptional. But after that, they all stayed silent for a while, and this made Isabel nervous. Noah grabbed Isabel's dress and whispered to her that his butt hurt. Isabel was glad that even in this world, people suffer from the same thing. She approached him and agreed with him. She told him not to worry because his mom would think of a solution. They wouldn't want his butt to really split open. Noah thought what she said was literal and panicked. Several days later, at His Highness Prince Aeneas's palace, their audience was granted surprisingly quickly. Lord Theobald said the emperor himself had given permission, and it might be because he thought that with him so close it would be easier to have him killed. With that, they arrived officially. His Highness Prince Aeneas, who harbored strong hostility toward Noah in the game, was portrayed as someone whose character could hardly be called good. But for now, he was still only 4 years old, so it might be possible to rectify the situation now. When Prince Aeneas came and welcomed them, Isabel was amazed by how cute he was. Noah immediately gave him his toy, and he seemed quite interested. They started playing like they had been friends for so long. Isabel wished that she had her phone now because Noah's greeting was absolutely perfect. He said it was an honor to meet him for the first time and introduced himself properly like a gentleman. Lord Theobald didn't expect him to warm up this quickly. At this rate, they would be able to bring up that flower matter faster than he thought. It seemed that all the maids and guards surrounding Prince Aeneas here were actually people under the king's influence. It was said they were planted from the start as spies to gather intelligence on the imperial palace. An emperor drowning in lust who cares nothing for politics. An idle empress, her father one of the emperor's foremost faction leaders, living a life of luxury and indulgence. It seemed neither of them cared for their children, and it was said they rarely visited Prince Aeneas's palace. If the divine spies had managed to infiltrate this deeply, then it may well be true that the parents don't care for their children at all. Of course, it was rare for nobles to raise their children themselves anyway. It was something rather commonplace, but still it felt a bit pitiable. And yet she wondered how this country didn't collapse with its leadership in such a state. The maid asked if it would be appropriate if she served tea now. She kindly accepted to have some tea. While they were talking, Isabel smelled something, and it was far stronger than perfume. It was as if an entire bottle had spilled here. A woman approached and told Lord Theobald that he should have informed her if he was going to come. Since this was Prince Aeneas's palace and very few were permitted entry during a guest audience without prior announcement, she figured that this lady was the queen. Queen Margaret was the daughter of one of the leading figures in the emperor's faction. This was a dangerous situation. The queen stated how happy she was to meet Lord Theobald. Isabel just hoped that she didn't overhear their conversation just now. The area around this room was full of the lord's men, so they should be notified immediately if anyone approaches. She wondered why the queen suddenly appeared. Queen asked if he came to see her in a very flirty way. Lord Theobald immediately denied. He stated that he came today to meet Prince Ines and mentioned that his wife runs a children's goods shop. Isabel was shocked by his attitude. Lord Theobald explained that they had decided to open a new branch in the imperial capital, so they took the chance to bring some new products and hear the prince's opinion. With situations like that, it was Isabel's time to shine. She was so confident when she first greeted the queen, but her attitude was so scary when she said she was the wife of the Duke Divine. She then asked what he brought with him. Lord said they were children's toys, and the one the prince was playing with was one of them. Lord Theobald said the prince had other toys too. For example, there was a toy called Blocks where the child stacks them up to play. The queen said it would be boring, and it would be better if she played with Lord Theobald. He responded that since she wasn't interested in these, they shouldn't take up any more of her precious time. He then brought Isabel with her and left the room in a hurry. He said he nearly died from the overwhelming scent of her perfume. Isabel then realized that she didn't say anything strange. She thought she would explore in anger and chase them out, but she was very calm. Lord wanted to move to another room. At that moment, Prince Aeneas held Isabel's finger. In the next scene, Isabel was a little bit distracted. Preparations for the capital branch were going smoothly, and so was the development of their new products. Almost all the new products were completed. The store's interior design work was going well too. Even that children's toy was beginning to take shape. Isabel wanted to go see it herself. Her worker said opening a branch in the capital right after establishing the main store was really impressive. She said that it was all thanks to His Grace's support and thanks to the staff who assisted her. For the capital branch opening, they selected an elite group of staff from the main store and sent them as supervisors and trainers. Thanks to Lord Theobald's support, they were able to expand the production system to nearly the size of a factory. Many of the ideas for the new product were Isabel's, but the ones who made them a reality and refined them into their current form were the manufacturing department. The people in this world really were incredibly hardworking. The staff member then asked her what they should do with Lord Oliver's things that had arrived. She asked her to show them to her. Noah was so excited for the new toys, but Isabel told him that those were not for him. They were going to his friends in the capital. But this new giant toy was his. She said it was called a slider. Noah carefully climbed the stairs and slid like a professional. Isabel was so amazed because she didn't even have to explain to him. Noah was so happy, but Camilla was so worried that he was hurt. Isabel told her not to worry because that was the proper way to play. Noah slid once again and asked for Shushu. He said he promised him. Upon returning from the interview day, Prince Aeneas told Noah to come back to play here again, and they made a pinky promise to each other. That was a real friendship. After they bade farewell to Her Majesty the Empress, she asked the prince, and it turned out that the Empress didn't visit him often. The Emperor had 11 sons, but it seemed that interaction with Prince Aeneas was very limited. The prince smiled the whole time, but he might be a bit lonely. But the palace wasn't a place she could go to easily. Isabel hugged Noah for being a good boy and promised to bring the slider and visit the prince next time. Still, they were worried about the queen so much that they couldn't discuss the black butterfly flower, so they would have to go to the palace again. Lord Theobald was supposed to arrange that. While they were talking, Lord Theobald came and asked if he wanted to meet the prince again. That was perfectly suitable because he had just arranged a meeting with him. Isabel was shocked and asked how he got approval for the meeting so quickly. He said she mentioned barley tea before. When he suggested it was good for his health, approval for the meeting was fast-tracked. Last time at tea time they served the children milk, but the prince seemed uninterested in milk. Milk may not suit everyone physiologically. Some children dislike the bitterness of black tea, and caffeine isn't recommended for young children, so she proposed barley tea. It was rich in minerals, mild in taste, and easy even for children to drink. If the prince likes to drink, barley's tea sales would surely increase. The appointment was in 2 weeks, and on that day he could accompany her too. Isabel said they had no choice but to rely on the prince. Lord Theobald apologized and explained that he couldn't find any other way and he didn't want to miss this opportunity. Isabel knew there were suspended souls at stake, but she was still feeling bad for the prince. Lord Theobald told her that he understood what she meant. No matter the excuses, they were trying to trick Prince Aeneas into cooperating with them. but that was fine because the prince would only be deceived, and that was enough for them. So the Lord said if the matter was accidentally exposed they must take every precaution to ensure the prince suffers no harm. Isabel asked how they were going to bring the black butterfly flower safely. It was a poisonous herb unknown even to physicians. It was extremely dangerous to let a 4-year-old handle it. Lord Theobald wondered what that toy was. She said it arrived from Oliver. Suddenly she had an idea, and she turned to Noah. She told him that they were going to see Prince Aeneas with the slider. In the next scene, Prince Aeneas was amazed by the slide they brought. He wanted Noah to come slide with him. After that, Isabel prepared some tea for the prince. The queen wasn't at the palace today due to diplomatic affairs, but apparently it had been confirmed that the queen had left the imperial capital, so at least this time she wouldn't burst in like last time. Isabel was glad he could meet the prince again. Noah, watching them hug like that, seemed a little bit. Isabel asked if she could lift him in her arms, if it was not disrespectful. He said he permitted it. Isabel carefully wrapped her arms around him and lifted him. After that precious hug, they started drinking their tea. The prince really liked barley tea. Isabel was glad it suited his taste. It was also Noah's favorite tea. Lord Theobald then asked if he remembered the butterfly-shaped flower he had told him about before. He said he did. The operation plan was as follows. First, Isabel made the prince show interest under the pretense that she wanted to draw a picture book inspired by the black butterfly flower. She steered the conversation so he would want to investigate the matter himself. Then she was going to tell him he must not leak anything, using the excuse that she didn't want her new product idea to be stolen. Once they got their hands on the black butterfly flower, everything would change drastically. If they could create an antidote from it, that would be a huge achievement, and even if they just prove its toxicity, that would alone be a major success. After all, it was a poison made only from a flower that grows in a garden accessible solely to members of the imperial family. Therefore, the list of suspects would be extremely limited. Lord Theobald mentioned at the table that his wife told him she wanted to make that flower the theme of a picture book. Prince Aeneas interrupted him and asked what inspired meant. Isabel was about to explain to him, but he told her to hold on and asked the maid to bring the dictionary. Noah was confused, so he said it was a book that had the meanings of words written inside it. His mother told him that if he was interested in something, he should look it up himself. She also said that what he learns on his own truly stayed with him. He found the meaning of the word inspired and then understood that she wanted to write a picture book featuring the butterfly flower. Isabel confirmed this and added that she had never seen that flower before, so she asked if he could look for it for her. But the situation just got awkward. Lord Theobald stood up and kneeled in front of Prince Aeneas. He said that one of his close attendants was currently suffering from severe illness, and to treat him they desperately needed the butterfly-shaped flower. But access to the garden where it grows was restricted to him alone, so he asked if he could bring it to him. He said that was the kind of story they would like to include in a picture book. Isabel understood what he was trying to do and said it was about a young prince who embarks on a grand adventure. That's why she truly wanted to see the butterfly flower with her own eyes. Prince Aeneas told them to leave it to him and added that a king never abandoned his people. This child was truly brilliant. If he became king one day, then surely the future of this country would be safe. While they were admiring him like that, he said he was the man who would control the mountains of the world and become the king of bandits. Isabel corrected him that the goal he was aiming for was the throne of this country, not the throne of bandits. But Noah said the one who would control the world was Noah. Isabel told both of them to enough playing out the picture book stories now. They went to the garden after Prince Aeneas changed his clothes. Lord Theobald asked what that outfit was, and she said they were rubber gloves and tall rubber boots. Some plants could cause rashes just by touch, so she rushed and had these made specifically for that purpose. Lord Theobald asked if that wasn't the kind of material Lord Oliver sent recently, and she said yes. It was still experimental, but it was waterproof, pliable, elastic, and interesting. The idea came to her while thinking about improving the comfort of horse carriages. The first thing that came to mind was those wooden wheels. Then she remembered that the Pablo tree was a bit like the rubber tree. She then thought about mixing it with something. Rubber was made from the sap of the rubber tree with sulfur. So she consulted with Oliver and he found it amazing. He was very excited in his letter. And so at that time the last package full of experiments arrived, and it was filled with writing from cover to cover. Inside the package there were various materials, and among them, to her surprise, a rubber-like material. So she hurried and had rubber gloves and rubber boots made for her. Lord Theobald had to admit that she really amazed him. She responded that the one who developed the rubber was her little brother. She then gave him a leather knife holder, and he thought it was a legendary sword. He thought he had gotten the strongest gear. Isabel told him not to overexert himself and not to run. Lord Theobald asked if he remembered the safety instructions, and he did. He said he would go now and went inside the garden. After he left, Lord Theobald told them to step back because if someone saw them here, it would be an annoying alert. It was Prince Aeneas's first time wandering alone. But it wasn't a stroll, it was a mission. So he wanted to accomplish it with excellence. He suddenly heard something and was a bit uneasy. But he reminded himself that he was fine and he could do this on his own. He even sleeps alone at night. But he couldn't see the butterfly flower. He wondered if it ran away because he was a bad child. He then heard someone's voice and decided to listen. The man said they must not be found by anyone. It was his father. From before, once, Prince Aeneas's father came to where he was, and he said to him that the blessing of the fire god would be granted to him. He said that he would become a good emperor, and patted his head. His father's hand was very big. Aeneas covered his mouth to be as silent as possible because no one must see him, even his parents. Lord Theobald told him to hide anywhere if it looked like someone might find him, and even if he thought they had gone away, he must not move. After he counted to 10 times, he could look quietly to check the situation. Tina started counting. His chest was pounding hard. It felt almost like playing hide-and-seek with his father. But after he finished counting, he checked the place, and his father wasn't there. Quickly he ran to see the black butterfly flower, and he found it. Isabel told him that he must pull it out from the roots, but he cannot touch it directly. The thick hairs were starting to show, so those were the roots. When the root becomes thin, he was going to pull it a bit firmly, then it would come out with a rip, and that was exactly what happened. He grabbed the flower and put it inside. He wanted to report to Lady Isabel and tell her she was right. He wanted to boast in front of the Duke, too. He was going to say his father was there, and he still couldn't find him, and he would tell Noah that he went on a really amazing adventure. When he went back, he was so excited that he was running and didn't see where he was stepping. He fell and dropped the flower. Isabel was so worried, but he said he was fine and the flower was safe. Isabel's eyes teared and she immediately hugged him. She apologized for putting him in danger just because she wanted the flower. Prince Linnaeus was shocked at first, but then he told her not to worry about that because he had fun, and even the injury was fine. He said he ran without paying attention and it was his fault. But while he was saying that he was having a hard time not crying, he said he wouldn't cry because crying was what weak people do, according to his mother. This child with such a small body had been enduring all this the whole time. Isabel asked him to show her his injury, and she would clean it. Lord Theobald gave her the sacred water. When she poured on his knees, the pain felt lighter. Isabel told him that when they become adults, there may be times even if they wanted to cry, they couldn't. But for now, he may cry as much as he wants. They would never consider him weak. After she said that, Aeneas admitted that he was scared all alone and cried his eyes out. Isabel cried with him and thanked him for what he did. She hugged him and told him to cry as much as he wanted, and after that he could smile with all his strength. After Prince Aeneas cried until he was exhausted, he fell asleep as if his battery had run out. With him, Noah slept too. Isabel closed the door carefully and said he wouldn't wake up for an hour or two. She said she would take care of the two children, but Lord Theobald said it was fine. She would get tired too if she stood for so long. He asked why he didn't sit. Isabel was surprised that he was waiting for her. She said she was surprised because she didn't expect his husband to say lines like those in children's books. He said he had looked through those books. Isabel did not expect that from him. He said it was for the prince. He didn't fully understand them though, but looking at children's reactions, it was obvious they enjoyed it. His words made her really happy. When Prince Aeneas woke up, he apologized for falling asleep. Isabel said it was okay, and Noah had started feeling sleepy too. Lord Theobald said they would be leaving now. He said he understood, because it had gotten late. Noah said they would see him tomorrow. Once again, Prince asked him to come any time. This child most likely understood that they only came for the flower, and he also thought that since they accomplished their goal, they wouldn't come back here again. Isabel decided to ask the prince if she could come again tomorrow because she was worried about his injury. Prince Aeneas seemed like he was waiting for her to say that, and he immediately accepted. After that, Isabel apologized to Lord Theobald for deciding on her own to come again tomorrow. He said it was reckless of her. Even so, the child was injured, and Prince Aeneas said he didn't see anything, but the emperor being in the garden also concerned him. In any case, they wouldn't leave it at that, and he would take care of it. Isabel thanked him. Before they could leave the palace, the queen appeared again. She said he didn't agree to see him again. She then asked if the box he was holding was prepared for Prince Aeneas. She touched the fabric that covered the box and asked if he would allow her to see what was inside as well. Isabel tried to calm herself because she thought the queen was away on diplomatic business, but the queen appeared right in front of them out of nowhere. She wanted to see the box Lord Theobald was holding and reached out to remove the cover. When she opened it, she saw an empty box. Isabel interrupted her and asked if she could speak with her. She hoped the queen was well and introduced herself. She then apologized for not greeting her properly the other day. She said she had already had the honor of meeting the prince. This was just the empty box from the toy they gave the prince. Of course, that was a complete lie. This box was actually built like a mirror box. Obviously, the black butterfly blossom was safely inside. But if anyone looked closely, they would spot the trick, so the smart move was to get out of here fast. Isabel said she grew up dirt poor, so she couldn't throw anything away, such as this box. Even an empty box felt useful to her, so she was taking it home. She acted like she was embarrassed that she still had that habit even after marrying Lord Theobald. The queen recalled that she was from the House Simmons and that she had heard the rumors about her. She wondered if someone like her supporting Lord Theobald would work. Isabel was glad that her interest shifted from the box to her and said she would do her absolute best. Now was the perfect time for Lord Theobald to speak. He interrupted their conversation and wanted to speak with her. He said that it was true Isabel could be eccentric sometimes, but she handled her duties just fine with the household and with the child. Even with city matters she had proven capable. He said that she was a remarkable woman. They were all excited that he was saying nice things about her until he changed his last sentence and said she was worthy of respect as a person. But Isabel was still touched by his words. She had no idea anyone thought that highly of her. Theobald admitted that at first he believed the rumors too, and that was quite shameful of him. So he said that her concerns were unnecessary. He then excused themselves and told Isabel to come. Before they left, Isabel looked at the queen and wondered why she was making that face. In the next scene, Walt apologized for bothering Theobald when he was already exhausted. He brought urgent documents that needed his attention. Theobald seemed a bit irritated. Walt noticed that he was acting a bit odd, so he asked what was wrong. He said that he was just thinking about yesterday. He held the young lord for the first time. Walt was shocked, so he said Isabel forced the situation. Walt asked how it was. Theobald thought about it for a moment and said it was nothing special and that he didn't feel anything. Walt seemed satisfied with this answer. He then mentioned that Lady Isabel went to visit the prince today, and he was surprised that she got approved so easily after what happened yesterday. Even Theobald admitted that he was taken aback, but she insisted on the visit and apparently it was the prince's own request. That said, he couldn't go along today, so he tried to stop it but got overruled. Isabel literally yelled at him, and it would be weird to refuse when they were invited, so he believed it would work out somehow. He assigned her an excellent bodyguard. The day after the black butterfly blossom incident, Isabel's husband handled things beautifully, which was great, but somehow before she even reached Prince Ignatius's quarters, she got intercepted by the Empress. She asked Isabel if she was Lord Theobald's maid. Isabel had already started sweating after her passive-aggressive question and introduced herself as Lord Theobald's wife again. She said she hoped the queen's mood had been well, but she immediately responded that her mood was anything but good. She then asked Isabel if she was here to brag about being Lord Theobald's wife. She said her husband was pretty wonderful. Still, judging from this reaction, seemed like the black butterfly blossom remained undiscovered, or so she foolishly assumed. From that day on, every time she went to see Prince Ignatius, for some reason the queen was always there. Not that it was weird to see her around the palace. There was nothing wrong with the Empress being wherever she wanted, but still, it was suspicious. One day she asked if she had come to see Ignatius again. The prince said they were welcome anytime, so they took him at his word. She asked Isabel what Prince Ignatius would gain from spending time with some penniless count's daughter. Isabel responded calmly, saying it wasn't about her. The prince wanted to play with Noah. It didn't seem like he had any friends his age, and their majesties were always busy with state affairs, so she assumed the prince got lonely often. The queen said she wouldn't know because she had never even had kids. She said she was right, but right now she was raising one. The queen then gasped, seeing Noah's face, and approached Isabel, whispering that they were not blood-related at all. Isabel was surprised that she whispered to her so Noah wouldn't hear. Isabel responded that even so, he was still her precious son. Speaking of which, Noah had learned how to greet people properly, so she told Noah to say hello to the queen. Noah said he hoped that the queen had been very well in a very cute way, and Isabel waited for a reaction from the queen. The queen sighed and said Lord Theobald was right about her. She was nothing like the rumors said. His Majesty, the Emperor Neroidas, came in a hurry and asked the queen if she was the one who entered their garden. Isabel was nervous. The queen seemed puzzled and asked what he meant. Neroidas said he asked if she was the one who stole flowers from his garden. He started yelling at the queen, saying he knew it was her and was mad because he personally tended to that flower bed himself. Isabel held her breath after realizing that they had been caught. But if he was accusing the Empress, that means he didn't know the real culprit. Isabel tried to stay calm and not let the panic show. She could still talk her way out of this. Neroidas said these days only she and he were allowed in that garden and asked her to explain. Before Isabel opened her mouth to say something, the queen said she picked a few of them because they were so beautiful that she wanted to put them in her room, but they wilted quickly, so she threw them away. Neroidas yelled at her that it was his garden, but she said it was the imperial garden, so there was no problem with her entering and picking flowers. Of course, she added that this applied to Ignatius as well. The king said he was the only one allowed in there from now on and told her not to pull that crap again. He stormed out, saying he couldn't stand how much she reeked of perfume. She told him not come back, and this perfume was specifically to keep him away. After he left for good, the queen confirmed that Isabel really did steal the black butterfly flowers. She turned to her and said there was no need to be scared because actually she was Team Duke Divine. Isabel had no idea that she was supporting him and was so happy. She said that it was true that she liked Lord Theobald, but it wasn't romantic. It was like falling for a stage actor at the opera. So basically she was a Duke Theobald stan. The queen said this was only natural. The emperor's faction was pushing through idiotic policies that barely qualify as politics, and Duke Divine's faction was trying to fix it. Which side was right becomes as obvious as fire being hot. She apologized for being cold to Isabel. Seeing Lord Theobald's first wife made her suspicious of her. She said she knew it might be hard to trust her right away, but she still asked her to tell her what happened. after Isabel told her how they tried to kill Lord Theobald. The queen was furious and wanted to make that bastard the king himself pay for that. Isabel panicked and asked her to calm down. She promised to keep a closer eye on that idiot the king and try to stop his assassination plan. She seemed pretty upset that all the work was on her because no one else did proper politics around here. The reason this country hadn't completely fallen apart yet was that the empress was quietly holding it together behind the scenes. The queen felt frustrated that they could not act openly. Her father was the head of the emperor's faction after all. They called themselves the emperor's faction, but really it was just pure greed and corruption rolled into one. Prince Ignatius came and said he was worried that they didn't show up. He stopped when he saw the queen, and the queen turned her back to him again. Isabel still didn't know why the empress kept away from Prince Ignatius. She apologized to the prince and said they were preparing a surprise for him, and it took longer than they expected. She suddenly grabbed the empress and said she was going to join them too. With that, the queen found herself sitting in the prince's room watching them play with their toys. Isabel wanted to ask her why she was avoiding Prince Ignatius. She said it was actually pretty obvious. A foolish mother was a bad influence on her child. Her father, who called himself part of the emperor's faction, was scheming to seize actual power, in the name of preserving the royal bloodline. The emperor's faction kept sending women to the emperor, but every single one of those women was a daughter of low-ranking nobles. To make her a legitimate wife, if she, the one with royal blood, were to bear the emperor's child, that child would almost certainly become the next emperor. She was her father's greatest pawn, so she turned that position to her advantage. While pretending to be an ignorant and foolish woman, she had been gathering evidence of various injustices, vowing that one day she was going to purge them all at once. During Ignatius's reign, she refused to let the stain of this era linger. She wanted him to grow into an emperor who could govern properly, in a palace far from his foolish father and mother, getting the proper education he deserved. That's why she had entrusted him to those in the divine faction. Isabel was surprised that she already knew, but she said she was wrong about one thing. Children absolutely need their parents' love. Being held, being told I love you, those good memories with their parents would support the prince for the rest of his life. But the queen thought it was too late now. When she looked at the kids, Noah waved at Isabel and then Prince Ignatius waved gingerly. The queen watched him and then she waved at him back gingerly. Prince's whole expression changed within seconds and he seemed so much happier. The queen was shocked by how much impact she had on her kid. She wondered if she could ever be loved by that child the way she was by hers. Isabel said she didn't need to worry about being loved because the prince already talked about her all the time. That was proof of deep love for his mother. She hesitantly added that the perfume could be a little more restrained. The queen smiled and said this was a charm against evil. She was sacrificing her own nose for this. She was interested in Isabel now because she finally figured out Theobald's type. Isabel said she didn't have any particular fondness for her or anything, but the queen made the same face from back then. She said she was glad she was someone who was easy to talk to. Truth was, the imperial palace was in a bit of a crisis right now. The emperor had impregnated a daughter of Duke Duskill from the neutral faction. Isabel was shocked. The queen said the balance of the imperial palace would collapse all at once. In case the worst happens, she would like Duke Divine to become Ignatius's guardian. In the next scene, Isabel went home and told Lord Theobald about what happened with the queen. Theobald was overwhelmed by all the new information she told him. He said he couldn't just take the empress's words at face value, but they couldn't exactly afford to ignore her either. He then showed her an analysis report on the black butterfly flower. Apparently it had no toxicity, but they did find a similar compound in the roots, and it might be that certain conditions were needed for it to become poisonous, or this specimen was simply a dead end. Isabel was frustrated. In that case, this was the perfect chance to sound the empress out for more information. But they would have to wait a little while, because the day of the toy shop opening had finally arrived. Shelves full of toys that make you excited just looking at them. A play area where children could run around and have fun, and lots of other fun stuff for the kids were in there. Noah got ready and wanted to try the slide. Lord Theobald was also there, and he found himself sliding together with Noah. This was the toy box, Imperial Capital Branch, and today was the pre-opening. After they slid together, Isabel asked if he was scared. He said it wasn't scary at all, and he wanted to go again. Isabel then asked Theobald if he was all right. He said she thought it well to change the angle halfway down so that it keeps the speed from getting too high. Isabel was glad that they were able to open on schedule, and it sounded like everything was going according to plan on that side too. As another visitor, the Queen and the Crown Prince arrived. She thanked Isabel for inviting them and said Ignatius loved the toys here, so they had been looking forward to this day. Seeing the Queen in this shop made people wonder, and they concluded that since the Queen was there, this shop was so good that even royals would cross faction lines to get their hands on them. This boosts everyone's urge to spend. They had accidentally scored some amazing advertising. Prince Ignius told his mother that he was trying the slide too. When he tried it, the Queen asked curiously how it was, and he said it was so much fun. Noah and Ignatius kept playing on the slide, and other kids joined them. They had been the perfect icebreaker for them. Truth was, everyone was kind of scared of that slide. None of them had ever seen a slide before, so it was normal. Isabel said they would take the children to a separate room when it was time. Their guards would be there, so there was no need to worry. Isabel also noticed that her perfume was nice and subtle today, so she was thankful. The queen then approached Isabel and asked how much she would have to pay for getting to talk one-on-one with Lord Theobald. She was treating her fave like an ATM. She was anxious that she might get a nosebleed or something, and she even started to feel nauseous. Isabel reminded her that she used to talk normally with him, but that was cause she was acting as Atakushi. She decided to go in as Atakushi. The Empress's real first-person pronoun was normally Atashi. Atakushi was basically the switch for combat mode. They guided her to Theobald's room and he greeted her. She told him to skip the formal greetings because this was not an official meeting. She was hoping they could speak frankly today. Theobald asked her to forgive his rudeness first and said that he still cannot trust her. She figured that as much she didn't know if it would suffice, but she had prepared something to help him trust her. But first she wanted to apologize. Even if she didn't know what was happening, she failed to put an end to the Emperor's stupidity. As the Emperor's wife, she was deeply ashamed and apologized for that. With that said, she wanted him to accept this bottle of her blood. The poison which the Emperor used was called the black butterfly's nectar. They say that when an extract from the black butterfly flower's root is mixed with imperial blood, it becomes poison. That was all their investigation had been able to uncover. This was the best she could do in her position right now. This was actually more than enough for them. If the news ever broke out that she had sided with the divine faction, she would lose her position. Worst case scenario, it could even cost her life. Theobald stated that he never intended to hold her personally responsible for what the Emperor did. She thanked him and wanted to move on to their main issue now. First, she brought the proof that her ideals align with those of the divine faction. She had been gathering this information since the day she became Empress. Evidence of wrongdoings by the Emperor, ministers and bureaucrats. Theobald checked the book, and if everything here was true, this was huge, but it was almost too much. The queen said this only gets put to use once Ignatius had been named crown prince and was old enough. Theobald figured that she was planning to purge them all at once after His Highness was ready to become the Emperor. The queen confirmed him and said the Emperor's faction as well as the neutral faction. Right now the country was split into 3 factions, all keeping the other in check: the Emperor faction, the Divine Duke's faction, and the so-called neutral faction that belongs to neither. They call themselves neutral, but they were just hyenas, waiting to pounce on real power. The queen said that if they were not, they wouldn't send in a woman who threatens her position. Lady Olivia Kate d'Esquil, daughter of Duke d'Esquil, was aiming for the Empress's throne. The moment it was decided there would be a new consort position opening, she started openly trying to kill her. As long as she was alive, she could protect Ignatius. Her position as Empress, her imperial bloodline, the information she had gathered, and her very self. She was going to use all of it to protect Ignatius, but if she were gone, then her son, whether of imperial blood or not, would be in danger. He needed a trustworthy supporter as soon as possible. If that child didn't become emperor, this country would definitely collapse. Theobald stated that he understood what she was saying, but she couldn't just agree so easily. For him to become the prince's guardian, it would mean staking not only his but his entire faction's fate on the prince. That was true. The queen said that the child was worth doing that. This is why he had already surrounded the prince with people from the divine faction. What she wanted from him was a guarantee. If she died, or regardless of whether she lived or died, once Ignatius was old enough to become emperor, she wanted a guaranteed promise that the divine duke would become his guardian. She was talking about a magic contract, a dangerous contract that kills you if you break it. Isabel was shocked. The queen said that if he guaranteed that the duke would stand behind her son, and as long as the divine faction acts for the empire's well-being, she, as empress of the Granish Empire, would officially stand with the divine duke's faction. Theobald asked her if she realized that they would come after her life openly. She said she knew that, but it was all for that child's sake and by extension for this country. From the moment she became empress, this life, this entire lifetime, she had decided all of it for this country. Theobald stated that he understood her resolve. He believed he understood Prince Ignatius's keen mind as well. However, for him to trust her, he needed her to answer one last question. The queen was a user of unique magic. Magic that doesn't fall under everyday spells or the elemental types like fire, water, wind, and earth. It was often an extremely rare ability, but precisely because of its rarity, it often drags its users into dangerous situations. Therefore, almost no one ever revealed such abilities publicly. Twice now she had appeared in ways that made no sense. The second time she was supposed to be outside the capital. Guard oversights and an inside man alone couldn't explain this. This information she gave them as well. For one individual, even for an empress, she had gathered way too much with precise detail. The queen said he was bound to notice. She had to ask that he tell no one about this and vanished. Everyone was shocked and looked for her. The room's door opened and she appeared there. She said that her ability was teleportation. Once she had visited a place, no matter how far, she could go there instantly. She was limited to using it twice a day though. Even so, that was way too powerful. She had laid all her cards on the table now and expected a good answer from Theobald. Theobald said he owed the prince a debt. That was right. Even if people's lives were on the line, they still forced a heavy burden onto a small child. The Empress risked everything to help them too. Theobald thought about it and said he was going to consider it positively. The Queen was so happy that her eyes teared up. She thanked him, and they left the room. Isabel turned to her and asked if she would join her for some tea. There were light snacks in the break room too, but she was shocked to see the Queen tremble so much. She was so excited after talking with Theobald so much and kept thinking about his mimics and handsome face. After that, they barely managed to produce a single dose of antidote, and the Divine Faction's elder survived. Partly thanks to that, the prince's support within the Divine Duke's faction became rock solid. Naturally, the Empress's wish was accepted as the united will of the Divine Faction. As for the poison in her and her husband, it was still there. The Queen informed them that the idiot Emperor really did lock down that garden so only he could enter. Judging from how their health had been so far, the doctors say that they would be fine for 10 years or so at least. They should all be alright until a saint shows up. After the grand opening of the Imperial Capital branch, business started booming. They finally got to come home. Isabel prepared bear-shaped soufflé pancakes for Noah, and he said he wub you viet. Isabel was once again able to spend some time with her son. When Noah ate the pancake, he was amazed at how delicious it was. He tried to say it melted in his mouth, but of course he couldn't really put it into words. He was also excited to see Prince Ignatius again tomorrow. Ignatius and Noah's little playdates were going smoothly. In the manga, Prince Ignatius had a tyrannical personality, but Isabel thought this might be the demon's fault. The demon, Abaddon, was usually disguised as a fictional noble, Viscount Tyler. He stayed by Ignatius's side at all times. They had yet to see anyone like that, but she was still on guard for that one. There were still plenty of things to worry about, but they had gained more and more reliable allies. It had been almost a year since she got married. At first she had no idea how things would turn out, but now somehow, even if only sometimes, Lord Theobald sits at the table and eats with them. While eating their rare dinner together, he said that he replaced all the glasswork with the new material, and it looked good. He suggested hosting a tea party here because it would be good publicity for the new material. He said that their son would be turning 4 soon, and it was about time he had some friends his age. Isabel was shocked that he was doing this for Noah and said he was right. When the maid served him his food, he was curious as to what it was. Isabel said it was curry bread. It was one of the dishes they served at the shop. She thought it might be nice to have something like this every now and then. Theobald ate the curry bread with proper etiquette and seemed shocked after tasting it. He said that the layers of spice bloom in the mouth, yet none clash, all coming together as one. It was stimulating, but the sweetness of the vegetables softened it, so even children should be able to eat it. He was fascinated by the idea of wrapping it in dough and deep frying it instead of using a pie crust. He even told Walt to try some too. Isabel didn't expect him to make a food review. Meanwhile, in her little corner, Lady Olivia was having a meltdown over how everyone was talking about Divine Duchess Isabel. Even though she was the one about to enter the palace, she was the one carrying the Emperor's child. All focus was on the Divine Duchess. A man next to her told her to calm down. He reminded her that she was going to be the mother of this nation, so none of that mattered. She seemed a bit calmer and said he was right. The man she was talking to was the demon, known as Viscount Tyler. The next chapter begins with Noah's letter to Ignatius. He mentions that since returning to his territory, he hasn't been able to see him, and he has felt very lonely. He then started to tell him what had been happening lately in their house. The other day, her mother was talking with their butler, Walt, about curry bread. Apparently, Walt mentioned a shop just for curry bread. This was actually Lord Theobald's suggestion, so he must work hard to see it through. Lord Theobald wanted to create a specialty shop for curry bread. It was a food that deserves to be known by the whole world, he said. Ideally, he wanted at least one shop in every territory. Walt had never seen him so enthusiastic, and Isabel had never seen Walt sparkle like that either. They were really way too fired up about this curry bread. Noah's mother, Walt, and his father all loved curry bread. Of course, he mentioned in the letter that he loved it too, and someday he wanted Prince Ignatius to try it too. Ignatius and the Queen were reading the letter together, and the Queen noted that they were going to be the first customers when they opened the curry bread shop. Ignatius asked if the Divine Duchy was terribly far away. She smiled at him and told him to leave that to his mother. After receiving Noah's letter, Ignatius wrote him back. He started by thanking him for his letter and then mentioned that he had been so lonely without him too. But lately his mother had been coming to see him every day. She talked with him so much and laughed with him so much. Also, he met with his father the other day and his father told him that he had to grow up quickly. He then started to wonder how he could grow up faster and asked this question to Noah too. His mother said drinking milk would help, but he didn't really like milk. It left a sticky feeling in his mouth and it made his tummy hurt. Regarding this, he wanted this to be a secret between just Noah and him. Noah told Isabel not to read it and to close her ears as he read that. Both Isabel and Sally held their laughter as he read that. He then started thinking of a way to grow up so that he could help his friend. He suggested him stand on a chair in his next letter. Ignatius immediately tried that, and he did feel taller. But something was different. Then, since adults have long legs, stretching his legs might work too, Noah said. So the Queen kept stretching his legs. After they stretched him enough, he asked if he got bigger. But it didn't work either. There were some other suggestions from Noah, such as praying to the fairies and getting lots of sleep, but it didn't look like he would grow just yet. But his mother told him that he learned so many things today, and that means his mind grew a little today. Even though he didn't grow taller, he was happy that his mother still praised him, and this was all thanks to Noah. Noah was so happy to receive his last letter. He excitedly told Isabel that he was helpful to Prince. Isabel and Sally were in love with how adorable they were. Still, she barely got to play with Noah today, so Isabel was a bit upset about that. They had the reception to prepare for, so it couldn't be helped for now. About the tea party, Lord Theobald suggested it would be rough on guests from far away since it was winter, so they decided to wait for spring instead. But she had never hosted a tea party before. And on top of that, Theobald heard Isabel had some skills at the piano and gifted her an extravagant piano. She was nervous to perform on this piano with his clumsy playing, but thanks to that she had come up with something wonderful. They had a little something to look forward to before the gathering too. A few days passed, and Isabel was bringing Noah somewhere. She asked him to wait until they were inside to see. They opened a door and it was pitch black in here, so Noah didn't see anything. Then Theobald used magic and lit his candles. Noah was amazed. She asked Noah to blow out the candles. Today was January 21st, and it was Noah's birthday. The maids opened the curtains and revealed the big party. There were lots of toys Noah loved, delicious food that he could eat as much as he liked, and even the maids had presents for him. The maids were so happy that Isabel included them in this birthday party. Isabel said she should be thanking them. Noah likely hadn't had his birthday celebrated until now. So this year they thought they would fill it with things Noah loved and people who loved Noah. Because Noah loved everyone in this manner, she had to invite them too. When it was time for Lord Theobald's present, Isabel was curious to see what he had got. Theobald stood in front of Noah and gave him a pocket watch. Theobald told Noah that he was 4 years old now. From now on, he asked him to use this watch to plan his actions. As the heir to the Duke House Divine, he must forge ahead, he said. Isabel giggled because Noah was only 4 years old. But seeing Noah's serious and dedicated face, Isabel was surprised. Last but not least, it was Isabel's gift. She started to get pretty nervous. Before she could give him, Noah said he wanted her to be with him forever as a present. He then told her that he loved her. Sally said the gift Noah wanted most of all was for her to stay by his side always. Isabel couldn't help but cry because even though it was Noah's birthday, she had received the most wonderful gift of all. After that beautiful talk, Isabel asked Noah to close his eyes as they headed to a different room. As she opened the door, she told Noah that she had one more present for him. Ignatius and the Queen were waiting for him in the room. Isabel approached the Queen and stated that she truly appreciated her cooperation. She responded that Ignatius had been saying he wanted to see Noah for the longest time. The fact that Ignatius and Ignatius could be together like this was all thanks to Isabel. Still, children grow up so fast, and every day bring a new surprise to her. Isabel agreed with her. It had been almost a year since she met Noah, and time really flies away. Noah kept thanking the Queen for coming here. Seeing him so well-mannered and cute, Isabel couldn't help but tear up again. Suddenly, a hand reached out and touched her tears. It was Lord Theobald, and somehow he was the one who looked confused when she should be the one. Meanwhile, the Queen grinned at Isabel as if she was saying she saw that. Isabel started to freak out about what the meaning of this was. In the next scene, Sally informed Isabel that Noah listened to this music box every single night. It seemed her present was his favorite after all. Isabel's gift was a magic box. She had the tune from Noah's favorite picture book made into a music box. She had it made so that even when he faces hard times ahead, listening to it will cheer him up. Sally then approached her and whispered something that made her. A few days later, Isabel and Noah appeared in front of Lord Theobald and wished him a happy birthday. She completely forgot that Theobald's birthday was right after Noah's. When she frantically asked Walt about it later, he told her that he never held a birthday celebration. He knew he would definitely avoid birthday parties, but still, they couldn't grandly celebrate Noah's and just ignore him, right? As they sat together to eat, she informed him that she had prepared several of their new curry breads. This seemed enough to make him happy. Noah then brought his present. He drew a picture of curry because he knew how much his father loved it. Theobald looked at the picture and asked the maids if this frame could be made of a new material instead of glass. Isabel asked him to look at the right thing. She then suggested inviting some friends and celebrating his birthday even bigger next year, but Theobald immediately said he had no such friends. She thought she blew it, but a few days later Noah decided to lend his father one of his friends because he thought it was lonely to have no friends. Theobald said he didn't need them, but he still put some on his couch. And Isabel couldn't help but notice that Theobald put the curry bread drawing Noah made right behind his desk. She was happy that the dollhouse was peaceful today too. The cold winter passed, and one spring day when it had grown quite warm, it was finally time for the spring social. Isabel thanked everyone for coming today and informed them that Noah had just turned 4 years old. She hoped that all the young lords and ladies here would become good friends with him. Lord Theobald said Noah had turned 4 and he needed to interact with other kids soon. And while Walt told her about the guest list, the average budget and all that stuff, the girl who couldn't afford dresses and never got to go to tea parties, Isabel, was nervous. He nearly gave up so many times since she had so little experience with those kinds of parties. But seeing Noah's excited face, she was so happy she arranged this. She wanted to make sure that he would have the time of his life today. She asked Noah to show everyone how to use the play equipment. Noah was dedicated to this job. Isabel had been preparing all sorts of things for this day. For the boys there was a jungle gym, climbing frames and slides. For the girls they had swings, and for the little ones a ball pit made of soft fabric. They haven't forgotten to consider the mothers either. They made comfortable places for them to relax and enjoy their time here. And it seemed like everyone loved them. Some of them expressed how it put their heart at ease. An outdoor sofa was quite novel too. Seeing them so happy and relaxed, Isabel could relate to those mothers. She dozed off on that sofa with Noah several times herself. She called it the resort garden set. It was also waterproof so it could stay outdoors permanently. This seemed interesting to the mothers and they immediately wanted to purchase them. The menu was the same as the toy treasure chest, and all the mothers expressed how much they loved their menu. Still, when these many ladies all talk at once, it was quite a noise. But as expected, these were the guests her husband chose. So there wasn't a single one here to mock the rumors about her. One of the mothers asked Isabel to look at Noah because they looked so adorable. Noah was holding another girl's hand to help her get out of the sling comfortably. He was a gentleman for sure. She wondered if Noah learned this from his teacher because her husband, the Lord, would never do something like that. He didn't even take his wife's hand and board the carriage first. Memories of that imperial banquet came flooding back to her. This was Isabel's first time hosting a tea party, but still, everyone was enjoying themselves. But this was not the end yet. The maid informed Isabel that everything was ready. Isabel clapped her hands and called out to everyone. She assumed they were getting a bit cold right now, so she told them to come inside the salon. The kids didn't seem like they wanted to finish playing, but then Isabel approached them more and mentioned that there was a delightful performance. Everyone went inside, and the mothers were also curious to see what band they invited them to see. They were worried about their child sitting still while watching the performance. Isabel told them not to worry because this performance was meant for the children to enjoy. Isabel called out to the kids and showed them a picture book, asking how many of them knew about it. This was the most popular picture book at Toy Treasure Chest. It was a work by Arnold, who's climbing the ladder to become a popular illustrator, and Aisha, an up-and-coming playwright. Using her humble animated drawings as reference, they refined it into a clean, polished art style. While maintaining the brisk tempo of a shonen manga, they incorporated this world's mythology and magic system into a unique setting. And by weaving in soap opera developments, it became a hugely popular series, drawing in mothers as well. Isabel asked Noah if he knew the main character's name, and he said yes. She then asked them to call out together, and then they would come out for them. On her count, everyone called out the name Akshay. Behind them, 3 people appeared, wearing the same clothes as in the book and greeting everyone. And so the centerpiece of this exchange even began. Isabel got the picture book authors to help, prepared a proposal and script, explained it all to the theater troupe and orchestra, and asked for their cooperation. She couldn't write orchestral scores herself, so she had the BGM she played on piano arranged properly. And to the performers bewildered by how this differs from traditional 2.50 musical, she somehow conveyed the nuances through gestures and body language. There was still embarrassment when shouting technique names. She spent her days rushing to the rehearsal hall whenever she found time. She couldn't believe an amateur like her did this in 3 months. Her otaku nature got a bit out of hand. Still, a surprisingly famous theater troupe agreed to help her. But the lady's reaction was lukewarm. She saw that everyone was crying their eyes out. She realized that she had seen this scene before. She actually experienced it herself. And when the performance was over, Noah seemed so happy, and that was the face Isabel wanted to see. And it looked like he made a lot of friends too. And some girlfriends. Suddenly Isabel noticed a sad-looking girl behind Noah. She knew her from the game. She fell for Noah at first sight and caused trouble between him and the heroine. She was a villainess with a slightly dangerous personality. Her name was Brunella Allegra Brambia. In the manga, things work out in the end, but still, Isabel knew this girl was troubled. And now Noah was friends with her. Noah said Brunella liked Teddy. Brunella was so shy and cute that Isabel was about to lose her mind over her. She had a soft spot for girls. Of course Noah came first. But still, there was a different kind of cuteness from boys. She knew that her education from here on out was what mattered. And she also had to get on her mother's good side just in case. While her mother apologized about Brunella, she said there was no problem and even thanked her for becoming friends with him. At the dinner table, Noah had been talking about nothing but that musical since the social gathering. Isabel was glad she worked so hard. Suddenly, Noah seemed silent, so she asked what was wrong. Noah was wondering if Ignatius was well. Several months had passed since they saw him, and she haven't been able to see the queen even once. With the appearance of consort Olivia, things at the palace had gotten tense. And the master had forbidden her from going to the palace at all. Naturally, the queen was terribly busy. There was no way she could ask her to use her ability for a child's sake, too. And she was worried that something might happen to the queen, or the prince might fall to darkness in all that chaos. She had been letting her guard down because things had been going too well. But the characters from the manga were appearing right on schedule. She noted to herself that she should not let her guard down. She wondered when she would be able to visit the imperial palace again. The maid informed her that it might be sooner than she thought. A letter had arrived from the imperial palace. It was an invitation to a tea party from the Queen. Isabel felt like this was unlike the Queen. There was another letter, and Isabel didn't seem so well after opening it. When the maid asked what was wrong, she said it was a tea party invitation from Imperial Consort Olivia, and it was on the same day as the Queen's tea party. In the next scene, Walt was informing Theobald about the new opera Isabel made. He said it was a fresh script with fresh music. He was told that children and adults alike enjoyed it together. Also, Isabel said if they based it on a picture book, children could enjoy it too and their audience would expand. A popular picture book alone would draw crowds, and it could become a stepping stone for budding actors. Theobald was impressed that Isabel was thinking that far ahead. He only thought it would help the children of nobility socialize and give her a chance to fit into high society. With that talent and drive, he started to realize that she would have suitors lining up, and now he was questioning why she became his wife. Walt calmly listened to him and responded that it was a proposal from a ducal house, and a count's family could hardly refuse. Theobald asked if Isabel didn't want to get married. Walt then asked if he truly thought a 17-year-old girl would be pleased to become the second wife of a man in his 30s with a child. Theobald completely forgot that she was 17 then, and the fact that she doted on Noah was a miracle. As they were talking, Miranda came and informed Theobald that Isabel wanted to discuss something urgent with him if it was possible. Isabel was in her room waiting for Miranda to inform her about Theobald when Miranda rushed inside and tried to inform her that Theobald had arrived. But he was already standing right behind her when she said that. Isabel panicked and asked why he was here. He said she called for him. She corrected him that she was planning to come to him herself. That's why she had Miranda check his schedule. Miranda apologized and explained that before she could tell her, Lord Theobald rushed out of his room. After they settled down, Isabel showed him the letters she received. Theobald said they had noticed her. Her accomplishments were famous in society now. A struggle over her had likely begun behind the scenes at the Imperial Palace. Women value social reputation over faction, after all. The Empress noticed the consort's move and threw her a lifeline, he would say. In any case, Theobald told her to attend the Queen's tea party. Naturally, the Empress takes priority over the consort. Before he left, Isabel thanked him for his counseling. Theobald paused for a moment and started staring at her. Then he told her to make sure to reply to the invitation promptly. Both Miranda and Sally were proud of their master for trying to take action and wanting to talk to Isabel more. Meanwhile, Isabel was still thinking about the situation in Imperial Palace. She just hoped that the Queen and Prince Aeneas were both safe. Suddenly she noticed that something was written on the back of the invitation. The Queen asked her to introduce that theater troupe to her and mentioned that Aeneas really wanted to see them. This message was enough for her to figure out that she was fine. In the next scene, Isabel and Noah came for the tea party, and the prince was so happy to see them. Isabel and Noah greeted them formally first. Then the Queen asked Aeneas to introduce Noah to the other children. Meanwhile, they started chatting. Isabel said she was so glad to see her and the prince looking well. The Queen said she was happy to see her too and asked if she was doing all right. Isabel was surprised that she was worried about the black butterfly flower poison. She comforted her that there was no problem at all and that Theobald was fine too. Their conversation was interrupted by Aeneas. He was telling the kids that they were going to see the shadow pictures from that book today. He asked Noah how it was since he had already seen it. Noah said it was so fun. As Noah was telling them all about the story, one of the boys asked if there would be a swordsman. He then noticed the mistake he made and covered his mouth in panic. In this country, it was considered a breach of etiquette for someone of lower status to address someone of higher status. One should ask permission before speaking first, but in the kids' case, they just felt like they had made another friend. The other kids joined them, saying they liked him too. Both the Queen and Isabel agreed that they could learn etiquette and manners gradually. Besides, today was a special tea party, so they could relax the rules a bit. The Queen said this while also dragging Isabel out of the room. She informed the ladies that the Duchess Divine had arrived. The atmosphere at the table was a bit different than what Isabel expected. Isabel formally greeted them and tried to make small talk, but one of the women wanted to speak to her. She said she heard Isabel had been running various businesses lately. Isabel said yes and explained that she opened a shop for children's goods. They started talking about how they didn't hear many good rumors about her and wondered how Theobald was doing. They claimed that they were worried about him and started questioning his choice of woman since he chose Isabel himself. After hearing those questions and the Queen saying they were going to hear all about Theobald today, Isabel realized that this tea party was actually a Duke fan club gathering. Everyone kept asking Isabel about what Theobald liked or didn't like until Isabel was exhausted. One of them suddenly asked if the Duke was always like that at home too. She was asking if he was always that cold and aloof. They were wondering how he was acting around her. Isabel agreed that he was a man of few words except about curry bread. His expression hardly changed either. Talking about him suddenly made her recall the moment he wiped her tears. She mentioned that even so, he did have his kind moments. They all started blushing and grinning and wanted to hear more about him. As they were talking, someone made an entrance in the room and greeted them. She was a beautiful woman who looked like a fairy tale princess, but no one seemed to be happy to see her. The Queen stood up and told her that this was her palace and to barge in during a tea party without permission was rude. That person was Olivia, the concubine everyone had been talking about. Olivia Kate Daskiel was a young lady of House Daskiel elevated to imperial consort after conceiving the king's child. She was the daughter of Duke Daskiel. She aims for the Empress's throne, and there are even rumors she would go so far as to threaten Margretha's life. After the Queen's obvious question, Olivia stated that she only came to invite the Queen to a tea party. The Queen responded that she should have sent word ahead. That was proper etiquette. She said she did send words ahead and she gave her approval. The guards at the palace gate and the servants all let her through so readily that she was quite certain the matter had been arranged. Isabel didn't think the Queen would lie about such a thing, but this was her palace and no one could enter without her permission. Isabel had no idea what was going on. The Queen reminded her that she was in the middle of a tea party right now, and there was no way she would approve her visit at such a time. Olivia acted surprised and asked why she would say something so cruel. She then asked if she was jealous because she had the king's favor. The Queen quickly responded that she couldn't care less about such things. If she insists on staying, she shall demand proof of written evidence that she approved of her visit. She then told her that she was going to give her some advice. She told her to say there was a misunderstanding and leave immediately. Or she might be saying she came here to disrupt her tea party. Olivia claimed she would never do such a thing. She then looked at them and stated that she had disturbed everyone and asked for their forgiveness. The problem was that she wasn't apologizing to the Queen, she was apologizing to the guests. When Isabel turned her head to look at her face, she saw her deadly glare. Back at her place, Olivia was having a crush because no one came to her tea party today. Every single reply to her invitations was a refusal, and the reason was always the same: I'm attending the Empress's tea party. And then when she went to see for herself, the Queen treated her badly. She had never been so humiliated. The Empress was merely from a Marquise's house, and she was a duke's daughter, so she convinced herself that her rank was higher. And yet that heavily made-up woman was Empress while she was a concubine. She was freaking out and completely obsessed with being the Queen, and she did notice Isabel making bold moves too. Suddenly, her whole attitude and face changed when the door was knocked on, and the Emperor arrived. In the next scene, Noah was reporting to his father about what happened today. Apparently, the Queen and the Prince were both doing well. The opera was wonderful, and they all cheered for them together. Noah was so cute that Isabel had a hard time trying not to hug and rub her cheek against his. Theobald calmly listened to Noah and said that if he enjoyed himself, that was what mattered the most. But that consort seemed to be every bit as troublesome as the rumor suggested. He heard the general account from the servants who accompanied her to the tea party and asked if she was okay. Isabel responded that she didn't even speak with the consort. Their eyes just met for a moment though. It was terrible though. A gaze filled with such malice. Theobald saw the look on Isabel's face and asked her to take Noah and return to the estate as soon as possible. He wanted to keep that consort away from her. If there were any more tea party invitations, he asked her to decline them. Isabel said social duties were an important part of a duchess's responsibilities, and if she refused, it would cause trouble for him. Theobald told her that it was better than putting her in danger. He couldn't keep relying on the Queen every time either. They were both ducal houses, so they could speak as equals. There was nothing to worry about. Isabel said she was grateful and decided to make haste to prepare. The door was knocked on over and over, and then Walt came. Apparently there was an urgent matter he must convey. He stated that an invitation to a tea party had arrived from Consort Olivia, and what's more, it was jointly signed with the king. She requested that they attend as a married couple. If the invitation had the king's name on it, there was no way they could refuse it. What's more, it was a tea party to serve the consort's prized tea. After the black butterfly flower incident, the rule that anything served at the imperial castle mustn't be left uneaten was abolished by the queen's arrangement, but they still had to drink the consort's prized tea. Theobald was sure that the emperor intended to use that poison again. This was a troublesome matter because an effective countermeasure against the black butterfly flower poison had yet to be found. But then Isabel had an idea. She said that if it was only tea, she might be able to devise a countermeasure. Theobald asked what she meant. She asked if he noticed she had made a small change to the garden. Theobald was confused as to why she brought that up all of a sudden. She giggled and assumed he didn't notice it. Isabel asked Noah to tell his father about that sofa. They went outside and Noah showed him the sofas right next to the red flowers. Theobald could see that she put an outdoor sofa at the townhouse but was confused as to what was going on. Noah suddenly realized that his bread was gone. He was shocked because there were still plenty left of them and now there were none. He was about to cry, so Isabel showed him the bread again. Theobald said she hid it when they looked away. This was called misdirection. A trick is often used in magic. She did so much with kids at the part-time job that she got pretty good at it. If they did this with tea, it would work. They could hide an absorbent cloth somewhere, and when they got the chance, soak the tea into it. If they kept it in a container made of new materials, it wouldn't even stain their clothes. That said, there were tricks to making it look natural. He would need to practice a bit, but she believed it would still work. Theobald asked her if she could teach him those tricks. She said she would prepare the container and cloth, and asked for a day to prepare them. She said she would teach Walt and have him relay it to him. She asked Walt what his schedule was the day after tomorrow. but Theobald asked her if she could spare the time. Isabel was confused, so he told her that he would like her to practice while they had tea, and if she had other plans they could reschedule. Isabel said she didn't have anything in particular, but she wondered if he was certain he was alright with this. He was also thinking about whether it was okay for him to be alone with her, but then decided that it was fine and that learning from her directly would be faster. Isabel was happy, and they promised to start the day after tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon.